Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Along with John Bruce, my name is Dewey Dailey, as we welcome you into this week's show, episode 63 here on the podcast. Now we have all of the rankings and seedings out for both the girls and boys tournament. The girls tournament, I believe, starting this Wednesday with some of the district first round stuff. But the boys are not going to start until I think next Tuesday, maybe is when the district's first round or quarterfinals or whatever's first begins.
I think there might be one where it's like it's not even to the quarterfinals. Like it's just straight up the first round because of just how long you have to go until you would win a district, which is the same as what it used to be in a couple of them. But for some teams, it's a little easier to win the district now with the 7 divisions,
right?
But not as easy as it would be in Division 1.
I was going to say, I think in like our main divisions, which is kind of like 4 to 7, like I feel like the path and the amount of games you have to play is pretty close to being the same because like even when it was 4 divisions, like there were some teams that pretty much had to buy into like a sectional final, which, and like most teams are playing in at least district quarterfinals, which that obviously would be the old sectional final. So I don't think it's changed things up too much. I mean, you still have to win a game to get to like what would have been the district tournament, but like you said, I think in the larger divisions, it seems like it's like if you're a 1 seed, you're just in the district final.
Right.
Like, so
I know that's how it was in soccer. I think it was New Albany boys. It might have been boys and girls in soccer. Were just in the district final automatically, and they're going to play like the 28 seed or something in the central district. But yeah, in our normal districts, which is, like you said, 4 through 7, it's pretty much the same path to get to a district championship as it was before. Maybe it's a little easier to get to the state, I guess, but we'll kind of see. For teams from our area, we did have some pretty historic runs this year in the fall, so hopefully we can do that here in the winter. We'll talk the boys brackets next week, and the girls brackets will go pretty in depth on later on today. But this one should be a fun episode. We got a lot of headlines, and it should just be an overall fun episode because of what some people in our area have accomplished so far this year, and then also getting ready for tournament time as always.
So we're going to run through. Oh man, we're going to run through a couple headlines here. I say a couple, but it's actually going to be 5 headlines. We've got a few 1,000 point scores, one new school record, and then we've got a commitment that we kind of missed on last week.
That was my bad.
It was like the same day we were filming, I think. So we just kind of looked past it, and I think we had 3 or 4 headlines last week.
Yeah, and I had already had the headlines in ahead of time, and then like we're in the middle of it, and you brought it up, and I was like, oh, that's not great. Hopefully her teammate can get to 1,000 points, so we can kind of throw it in together. And luckily that happened. So we will go. That'll be our in depth on the Unioto girls on that.
So we'll go ahead and jump into the headlines with our first from the Logan Elm boys basketball team, Nemiah Waugh. Senior averaging just under 17 points per game, along with 6.5 rebounds. It's a Logan Elm team that I think, after their Cinderella run to the convo last year, you kind of had some high hopes for. They're currently 6-14, but I think they have a first round game with Unioto, which is obviously one of the teams they upset to get to the convo last season. But for Waugh scoring his 1,000th point as a Brave, a big accomplishment for the senior. And I mean, for Logan Elm, kind of setting up for another Cinderella run in the tournament here.
Yeah, it's for Waugh, when he was a sophomore, I think they plan on him being like the number 3 scorer, like the number 3 option. And then their top option got hurt in football season. And then their second option got hurt like the second game of the year. So he had to step in as a sophomore and be a big time player for the Braves, which he's really carried over for the 3 years he's been there with the varsity. And, obviously he helped carry them to a district run last year where, they won a sectional. They upset Washington Courthouse on the road, then they upset Unioto at Miami Trace. And then they got down to the convo where they ended up losing. But At the same time, they were a very low seed. This year, once again, they are a low seed. 6-14.
But they played a lot of close games.
Yeah, a lot of
they
close
lost to
games.
Miami Trace by like 4 or 5. I think they lost to Jackson by 1. A lot of teams have lost to Jackson by 1.
But yeah, they're a team that when, as a former coach at Unioto, when that came up on the bracket, I was like, that's probably not the most ideal spot to be, because what Wall was able to do against them last year, they play very good competition throughout the year. And like you said, they've played a lot of really competitive games. Now 6-14, they've had some trouble with those in a lot of those games as well. But this is not a team that you should really overlook if you are a Unioto, or even this week when they play road games at Chillicothe and at Zane Trace. They're going to be in Ross County a lot over the next 10 days or so. So I think Logan Elm is a team to watch for because of what Nemiah Waugh can do. An outstanding athlete. He can score at every level. I think he does his best when he's getting into the mid-range and at the hoop, but he can also expand the floor a little bit too. So an outstanding player is Mr. Waugh, and looking forward to at least seeing him a couple more times, at least on film, and then probably in person over there at Unioto.
And then another 1,000-point score, this one on the girls' side for Minford, Lindsee Williams, getting her 1,000th point in her career as a Falcon. I mean, Minford, I think the 3 seed in the Division 5 tournament, so obviously they're, in terms of seedings, favored to win a district title as 3 teams get out of the districts in Division 5, and Williams a big part in the season they've had so far.
Yeah, she's committed to Radford. She's going to go play Division 1 basketball next year. She's got a nice touch around the rim. She's a very good shot blocker, really good rebounder as well. Scoring hasn't always been the easiest, but she can expand the floor a little bit as well. They've won their second straight SOC 3 championship this year. They split with Wheelersburg on that, so they each get a share. I think it was with West last year. So they've done well. They've gone out and challenged themselves this year, and it ended up being rewarded with that 3 seed. Now they're going to look to win their first district title since the 2017-2018 season. And, I know we have differing opinions on it, which we'll go over in a little bit, but this is a good team. And, Williams is the centerpiece for that and the success that they've been able to have over the last couple of seasons.
And then we'll go over a new school record, a single season record over at Waverly for their girls basketball team, Caris Risner, with 278 and counting. I believe 277 may have been the last record. 278 was what she got to break it. I'm not sure exactly what she's at now, but for Risner, now the single season steals leader at Waverly. It's a team that I think is right at 500, 11-11, and they've got kind of an interesting matchup with Logan Elm in the opening round of the tournament. So Waverly obviously had a good season. It's one of those teams that are well coached, but defensively they're going to have to step up to stop a player like Kiana Ingram in the first round at Logan Elm.
And I would say she's probably going to be put out on Ingram to try to, if not add to that steals total, at least cause some havoc, get a lot of deflections, and see what they can do. Risner's had an outstanding career over there at Waverly. Her Paige O'Brien give them, some options as well. That's going to be like you said, an interesting matchup. I believe that's on Tuesday night. I think it's going to be Wednesday night. I think Derek said he was going to be at that game. We'll see weather-wise how that goes. Both those teams are 11-11. They both have some outstanding players, and is a pretty good first-round matchup as well.
And then we'll move over. We've got a couple headlines coming out of the Unioto girls basketball program. We'll start with Mya Hamilton getting her 1,000th point in her high school basketball career.
And it's really 2.5 seasons. She was hurt. She played her freshman year at Eastern Brown. She got hurt before her sophomore year, didn't play at all. Her junior year, she played about the first 12-ish games over at Unioto and got hurt. And then this year, she's been able to stay healthy throughout the season and was able to get to 1,000. So, I mean, her point per game is very good. As when you look at her career, it may have taken her until the last regular season game because of all the injuries that she's had to deal with. Averages 19.2 points a game this year. The Shermans are 17-4. They'll take on Circleville on Tuesday before hosting Athens on Saturday in what will be a district quarterfinal. In that, now Athens still has to beat Chillicothe, but Athens is going to beat Chillicothe. And also, Hamilton was able to. She was selected to represent the South in the North-South game for the district, so a pretty good honor for her. It's been a long time since a Unioto player has represented in the North-South game for the girls. I think it may have been back to Alexis Overly. I think may have been the last one, and that's a pretty long time. I'm sure next year there will be another one because it's only seniors, but she was co-player of the year in the district with Milee Smith. Just an outstanding career for Hamilton, who's going to go play at Central Connecticut State. It's just dealing with injuries and being able to bounce back from them just says a lot about her, willingness to work, her grit, her determination. And ultimately, that's been a big help for the Shermans going 17-4.
And then also for Unioto with Milee Smith, this was the one we kind of missed last week. I think we all acknowledged it happened, but we didn't even think to add it on to add it onto our headlines.
I think it was, you knew it was coming, so there was no surprise to it. Right. So I think I missed it.
Right. But yeah, for Milee Smith, now committed to Dayton, obviously still a junior, so she still has a season to go at Unioto, but I mean, averaging over 25 points per game as a junior. You mentioned with Hamilton out next year, you got to figure that number, it's not going to go down, right? I mean, she's going to average that or more next season as well. Dayton obviously getting a good one with Milee Smith.
Well, and this is what I'll also add about Milee Smith: 25.9 points a game, which is second in the state this year. If you look at the history of the SVC and you see the all-time scoring leaders, there's a lot of people. I think it might be 4 that are over 2,200 points, or maybe the fifth is close. But either way, none of them played with a running clock. So she is playing 2 full quarters, and then usually a running clock in that third quarter, and doesn't play a whole lot in the fourth in a lot of these games. So she is averaging close to 26 points a game with a running clock, and it's just been very efficient, outstanding. And I think the crazy thing is when she goes to Dayton, I just feel like she's going to be the type of player that can fill whatever role you want to give her. She can do the scoring. She's expanded her game to be pretty efficient beyond the 3-point line, where before it was there, but it wasn't as efficient as it has been. And I think when she goes to Dayton, she's going to be able to fill in anywhere where if they need her to score, she can score. If they need her to be a passer, she can be a passer. If they want her to be a defensive player, she can do that as well. She's one of those players that can, yes, she's scoring almost 26 points a game this year, but she doesn't have to do that to impact the game. Where some players have to score to impact the game, Milee Smith doesn't have to, and that's one of the reasons why she was co-district player of the year with Mya Hamilton in Division III, and why next year and beyond she's going to have a really successful basketball career. So congratulations to her. Really looking forward to seeing what she does the rest of her Unioto career. Like we said, she's going to be their all-time leading scorer, and she's probably going to be in the top 5 or 6 in SVC history, and it's a pretty good run, and it's not even close to being over. So congrats to her, and congrats to all of our headline makers, as they all did much more in their careers than we did. So, but it's always good to be able to celebrate kids from a variety of programs as well. So anytime we can do that, we really enjoy doing it.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our to the boys basketball segment of the show. We're going to go over 3 games that happened last week, and then we're going to preview one game coming up this week. It's a big one coming up tomorrow night. And then we'll go over our quick picks before moving on to the girls basketball segment of the show. So we'll go ahead and start off with a game that happened in the township this past week. I believe it was a doubleheader with both boys and girls playing in this one. But on the boys' side, it was a 66-62 win for Nelsonville-York over Huntington in overtime.
Yeah, it was a really tight game throughout. It was a pretty fun game to watch. It ended up 66-62 in overtime. Alec Thompson for Nelsonville had the go-ahead basket with about 55 seconds left to play in overtime. He finished with 21 points. Bean Martin was 17, and Bryant Call with 14 for Nelsonville. It was the first time we get to see the Buckeyes since the first week of the regular season, and you could tell they are just getting better. They got a pretty low seeding in the tournament, but I do think they're an interesting team to watch for because of the style that they play, their length, their ability from behind the three-point line. I don't know if they can win that first-round game, but they are definitely a team that you're not going to want to overlook. Speaking of not wanting to overlook, this Huntington team has gotten so much better throughout the year. They're 7-14 now. I watched them win on Saturday, which I wrote about, which is on the SOSAOhio.com. And, Frankie Hirsch has really started to evolve as a player. The sophomore with 20 points, 6 assists in this game against Nelsonville. Calvin Manson with 18 points. Gabe Beardsley with 15. Brennan Smith, a freshman, made his only shot of the game with about 2 seconds left. Hit a 3 to send it to overtime, which ultimately Nelsonville was able to win. It was a really good game. It's we don't always go to the best against best. We sometimes, on the days off from what our streams are, I'll look at matchups. This was a matchup I liked. Shockingly, I was kind of right about it. But yeah, it was a good game. So it was good to watch this Nelsonville team. A lot of those guys coming back next year as well. Call will not be, but got a bunch of juniors and a couple of freshmen that were impact players as well.
No, I mean, it's a team in Huntington you've seen, I think, a couple of times this season, and the same can be said for Nelsonville-York, as you guys saw a good one down there against Athens. I think Athens and Nelsonville-York may have won the award for most competitive boys season series. Who was the? What was
I was
the
going to say
other
McLean and Hillsborough.
I was going to say McLean and
Hillsborough.
Even though it was. But Athens and Nelsonville, they split. They split, yeah.
But yeah, this Huntington team I think is going to be really interesting to watch because they have a couple of nice seniors, but really, with Hirsch being a sophomore, he's getting close to 16 a game right now. Calvin Manson, we saw him on stream last year and was a monster.
Probably his best game of his varsity
I think
career.
It was. And Brennan Smith is only a freshman, but does a really good job of running the show. He's going to grow a little bit, and that's just going to make him better as well.
All right, we can go ahead and move on to our second recap. I would have to really look at pretty much every game that's happened this year. This has got to be, and it's hard to say upset because Zane Trace is 18-4. Or I don't know if it's that much, but they've won 15 or 16 games.
They're 16-3.
16
or
and
6, or maybe 17-3.
17. So they have a couple more games this week, 2 or 3 games this week, but nonetheless. They're a 5 seed in the Division 5 tournament. They've won 15, 16, 17 games this season with still a few to go. So it's hard to say this was an upset, but at the same time, they're 17-3.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, they're 17-3 through 20 games, still 2 games to go before the tournament starts next week. And we're talking about it might be an upset for them, but it's a 54-50 win for the Pioneers over Jackson on the road. And this is kind of where you start getting caught up in that transitive property thing where you have Unioto with a 12 and 24 point wins over Zane Trace. And then in the same week that Jackson beats Unioto by 16 or 14
I don't think it was as close as the final score was. It was like a 20-point game after 3.
In that same week, that was on a Saturday, wasn't it? Or was that last Friday?
It's Friday. Last Friday.
Okay, so they're a week apart. But
this was so the Unioto Jackson game was on Tuesday, and Unioto Zane Trace was on Friday, and then this game was on Tuesday.
Oh, the following Tuesday. Yeah. So, in a week, calendar time, in a week, Unioto beats Zane Trace by 24. Jackson beats Unioto by 14 or 16, and then Zane Trace turns around and beats Jackson by 4. So it's, like I said, it's hard to call it an upset, but at the same time, it is, especially on the road at Jackson.
Yeah, I think, you would say just very unexpected, especially with what had happened in the previous week. And it was a game where I don't want to say neither of those games were particularly competitive the week before. So really, Jackson got out to a quick start on Unioto and just kept him at arm's length and then just built the lead up throughout the game. Unioto did the same thing to Zane Trace. Zane Trace made a tiny run in the third, but I don't think they ever got it down below 10. And that game ended up, the subs played the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game. And then you go over to this one, and we didn't even preview it last week. Oh. So because of what had happened the week before, and it was originally on our on our script to do, but we ended up not doing it because it was like, man, I just don't see it. Um, yeah, we were right. We didn't see it because ended up being a really impressive win for Zane Trace. They led throughout the game. They struggled at the free throw line late, which gave Jackson a couple of chances. I think they missed a three. It was a pretty good look when they were down by two, and then Grady Stewart was able to hit two free throws to extend the lead. But really, if you look at what the difference was in this game, the third quarter, Zane Trace hit 6 threes, and I don't know how many of what he hit in the third, but Noah Houston got red hot. He was 4 for 5 from three. He had 12 points, and there was a couple of different times where he hit shots right after Jackson scored that were almost like daggers. But to Jackson's credit, they kept coming back. They kept battling back and made it a pretty interesting game down the stretch. But yeah, it was just, Zane Trace improved. I think it was either 15 or 16 and three after this one. Gunnar McCullough with 13 points led the way. Landon Gerald and Noah Houston each with 12. Grady Stewart with 9. They're a team, they really play 6, sometimes 7. They're all upperclassmen. You only have the two juniors and Stewart and McCullough. The rest are seniors. You mix in Rippeth, Landon Robinson, obviously, and then Judah Hanks plays a little more sparingly, but still provides them with some winning plays. And really, we weren't sure what to expect out of Zane Trace, but I think that showed the maturity of what Coach Cassidy's trying to do, and what he's been able to work with this year is having those seniors that are a pretty mature group that they can just bounce back, and they were able to bounce back in a big way after a disappointing performance on Friday with a huge win on the road down at Jackson. Charlie Woodard got hot from deep in that one. He ended up with 21 points. Jax Carroll with 9. The only thing I'll say when I watched it back was Jackson did some stuff that I really liked that I've not seen out of them. It was like they got down and they were able to get shots for guys
they borderline came back.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't it? I think you may have said it. I was kind of
they got down
out.
to 2. It might have been 1.
I was going to say it was a double-digit lead for ZT going into the second or into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and it was, Woodard hit a couple threes. I think Steven Jenkins hit one. Ryan Simons hit one. Jax Carroll hit 1 or 2. That's something that I hadn't seen from them. We had streamed them twice, and I think they had made 1 3 in the 2 games. Now, they didn't really need to, but at the same time, they did not look good shooting from deep at all. Now, the shot they got late, I didn't love it. I thought it probably should have went through Woodard, but still was a pretty decent look. And ultimately, they just really battled in this game, and I think that's what you like out of Jackson is it never feels like they're out of the game because they've got all these different guys that can handle the ball, and they're going to guard you and they're going to be physical with you. So even when they don't play well, or they let you get going from 3, like obviously Zane Trace did in that one, I think they were 9 of 20. I think is the stat I saw on Zane Trace in that game, 9 of 20 from 3. You've got to cut the 3-point line against Zane Trace, and Jackson wasn't able to do it. But ultimately, they got themselves back in the game and really competed well. So this was still a pretty fun game to watch down the stretch. I think it was, a couple different options where you were able to see it. And I know the radio had the call, and they always do a really good job on the radio down there at Jackson. Can't remember the name. Coxie threw the name out there.
It's Moreau. Something Moreau.
Don. Yeah. They do a really good job, and it's. Yeah, so I think this would probably go under disappointing for Jackson. They still are going to be the 2 seed in the South or in the Division 4. Like you mentioned, St. Trace is the 5, which is kind of crazy because with a win like this, you would have thought they would have moved up more.
I was waiting on you to finish, but I was going to ask, the Division 5 tournament's obviously pretty stacked, and it's the 5 seed. There's not a whole lot of room to move up when teams like Minford and Fairland and Chesapeake are the top 3, but is Zane Trace underseeded at the 5? I mean, they're 17 and 3. Their 2 losses are to teams that are combined 36 and 3, being 19 and 0 Miami Trace, and 2 losses to 17 and 0 Unioto. And I'm not sure if does the RPI factor in margin of like
It does
wins and
not.
okay, because I was going to say they lost to Miami Trace by I think 10.
10.
Now the losses to Unioto were obviously a little lopsided, especially the last one, but
I think
still.
I think they don't do it because, like, we'll say, like, that first loss against Unioto was a 12-point game, but it wasn't a 12-point game.
Right.
Like, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to do in that way. But yeah, this is a Zane Trace team that's going to go in with 3 losses, and
I'm surprised they're seated below Ironton. That's what else. Like, I know it's all computer generated, so there's obviously a reason for it.
There's no bias in it. Yeah.
But like that and we're talking about 1 seed. I think they'll end up playing each other in the district semi, so it really wouldn't have mattered anyway. But I don't know who's. I would have to look at their schedule because they probably have a very obvious one that I'm not thinking of. But like for Ironton, who's their signature win? They beat Wheelersburg the other day.
But that wouldn't have counted.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think that one counted because it was on a Saturday and it was a makeup, so it should have counted originally, but they got postponed. I would have to pull up Ironton's basketball schedule, but you could also say the same. But for Zane Trace, who's their signature win? Well, they just beat the number 2 team in Division 4.
Yeah, I was going to say the SVC is very down.
The OVC is a tough.
Yeah, but like it wasn't that close either between those two. Like the opponent's win percentage that Ironton played was so much better than what Zane Trace played. It was like 15 percentage points better. And that may not sound like a lot, but ultimately that's,
So here, we'll just, and I know we're kind of like, once again, it's not that big a deal because the 4 and 5 play each other in the district semis. But like for Ironton, their wins this season are Greenup County, Gallia, South Point twice, Portsmouth twice, Rock Hill, Colgrove. They still have to play. They still have makeups with both of those teams. They lost to Chesapeake by 6. They went to double overtime with Fairland the first time around and lost. So I'd say that they probably benefit pretty heavy off of those losses. I mean, when you lose tight ones to the 2 and 3 seed in the Division 5, that's probably going to help out with.
I'll tell you what also helps here.
Kentucky,
West Virginia. There's one of their wins was against 11-3 Wayne, West Virginia. Like I don't like.
I thought don't all the out-of-state teams factor in the same?
They all count the same, but their record still counts. So the fact they're 11-3, it gets them like Division 4 points or whatever.
Okay.
So instead of it being like you playing, we'll say Huntington High School, which we saw them against Walnut Ridge, instead of playing Huntington High, which is one of the biggest schools in West Virginia, you could play the smallest school and they're all going to count the same. So I feel like that probably helps a little bit because I think one of those schools on there, Spring Valley, that they had lost
They're pretty good.
Yeah, that had been really good this season. So I think it's that you're playing these teams from across the river, and I think that ultimately helps in their non-conference. But also for Zane Trace, outside of that one, obviously very good win at Jackson. I mean, you have Circleville, Circleville had a good season. Waverly, which I think started well, but has kind of fallen off a little bit. But still, that's not a bad one. Lost to Miami Trace. Amanda's not very good in the non-league. McLean's not very good in the non-league. But really,
I'll be interested if those two teams end up matching with each other in the district semis. I think that would be a pretty good game. I will say so Ironton plays Chesapeake for the second time tonight.
Yeah.
Chesapeake decided they were going to have a gauntlet to end the season. Now, I know the snow helped with it a little bit, but I mean, going into this Wednesday when they're home against Fairland, their last 3 games, unless they played a game on Saturday. Uh-huh. Their last 4 is Ironton, Fairland.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. That's not an easy way to end the season, but it's also a way to, you could look at it. You could look at it one of 2 ways. You could either say, well, we're destroying ourselves at the end of the season, right when we need to be fresh, or we're like preparing for the tournament. I mean, either way.
And there's some schools that are playing not great schedules at the end, so maybe you get healthy, but you don't have to stay as locked in. Right. So it could be one way or the other. I think for, we're obviously going to talk about Chesapeake here in a second, but for some of these schools, if you are able to kind of relax and maybe relax too much, and it ends up hurting you down the stretch. But yeah, this is a pretty big gauntlet coming up for Chesapeake, as we'll talk about now. But which I guess we could technically do this as a preview in a way as well. But last Friday, our Brocknetter was down in Proctorville for Fairland 55, Chesapeake 49 in double overtime, which if you were looking at the score line, you might have thought, was it double or single overtime? Because at the end of regulation, 47 all. At the end of overtime number 1, 47 all. So it's just kind of how those teams will play. But ultimately, Fairland wins in double overtime to move to, it was 18-1, and then they picked up a huge win on Saturday against
lopsided win
against South Webster that they pretty much dominated from the end of the first quarter on. And now Fairland sits at 19-1, 13-0 in the OVC. They were led by Brody Buchanan. Surprise, surprise. He's a dude. Like he's one of the better players in the district anyway. But they returned 2 starters from last year. He's one of them, along with Keegan Smith. And Laco got some time late in the season. Wasn't playing a ton. I don't think Franson was.
I don't remember Franson playing a lot last year.
Gabe Polson came back after not playing for a couple of years. So really, you've got 2 starters coming back from a district semifinalist team from last year. But it's the point guard. It's the point guard and your best defender. So you throw out that, and you're going to have a pretty good spot to be in. Coach Speed does a great job. His staff is outstanding at Fairland, and that's why they're going to at least share the OVC championship. But in this game, Brody Buchanan, 30 points. He went on a 7-0 run. It was like 2:35 left is what I saw in regulation. They were down 47-40. He gets a basket. They get a stop. He hits a 3. Then he gets a steal at midcourt for a layup, ties it at 47. Like that, we had the game on during our game that we were doing on Friday, and our game had it was kind of a slow point, or maybe it was a couple timeouts in a row, and Dewey's got it up, and it's like, oh, it's 47-40. And then at the next break, we look down, and it's 47 all. And it was like within a minute, and Brody Buchanan just kind of proved why he's going to be the OVC Player of the Year, why he's going to be an All-Ohioan. I don't know about the district level because they're going to be in the same as Minford is. So I mean, that's going to be
a stack.
That's a stack.
The Division 5 all-district team probably takes out just about any other all-district team. That all-district team. I mean, you can imagine 2 of or at least. I mean, I would have to go down and look, but is Colegrove Division 5?
Yes.
So I mean, Owen Johnson might be on there, but I mean,
and he might not be.
Right.
That's the other.
I mean, you figure it'll probably be Montgomery and Kaiser, and then did they pick 5? Is 5?
Looked like there was 7 in the.
Okay, so you would imagine if there's 7, there's no way Brody Buchanan's not on there,
right? But he's been he might get Player of the Year because Kaiser and Montgomery might cancel each other out. Where even though Buchanan's got some excellent help throughout the season from his teammates, he's clearly the guy.
Right.
Where I think at times you can, Montgomery can be the guy or Kaiser can be the guy, or they're both just the guy at the same time. And,
right.
But yeah, Buchanan was unbelievable in this one. As I mentioned a couple times, 30 points. He's just so tough. And it's just the will to win is so high with him. Cliff Franson, a junior, with 12 points in the game. They didn't take their first lead until the second overtime, which is absolutely insane. This week, not the easiest week. I mean, you're at Wheelersburg, who has played better at home, even though they've been on a really big struggle for a while now. I think they're 7-11, maybe 7-12. So that one should be a game Fairland should win, but it's always at Wheelersburg. Never an easy place to win. Who knows if that game will get played on Tuesday because of the incoming weather also. So, but at Chesapeake on Wednesday is a big one. And like I said, this could pretty much be a preview for Wednesday as well.
Right.
So in that game, Chesapeake dropped to 18-2, 11-1 in the OVC. So they've had an outstanding season. Monday, when we're taping, they're playing Ironton. Not easy, obviously. If they win that game, then this will be a OVC championship game on Wednesday at Chesapeake. Maddox Kazee, Casey. I think Casey sounds better, but if he says it's Kazee, then it's Kazee.
Yeah, that's what Coach Ader said was Kazee. Which...
only a sophomore, probably going to take over the league in the next couple of years. He's been really good this year for them, but he led them with 17 points. Carson Frecco with 11 points, Caden Perkins with 10, and then Ethan Kearns with 9. They have that game with Ironton on Monday, which clearly we're not going to be able to have the results on when this goes out. Right. But they do host Fairland on Wednesday, which, there's got to be some, obviously you wouldn't say something like bad blood, but there's got to be a little frustration from that game where they led the entire game up until about a minute 45 left when Birdie Buchanan got them back in the game like that. So there's got to be a little frustration of just knowing how close they were to pretty much securing the OVC on the road before they would come back home. They've played really well all throughout the year. It's weird because I'm going to say a weird loss to Valley, although I think we both are probably going to pick Valley when it comes to Valley's been really good
playing good basketball.
Yeah, so they are, as you mentioned, Valley playing good basketball. They've been outstanding as of late. So, I mean, that one, while it still is kind of a head scratcher a little bit, but
I mean, it's hard to call it that at this point. I mean, you're losing to the team that's number one in both your league and your division, and then you're losing to another team that, as it stands, is favored to get to the district final in Division 6. I think the one thing for Chesapeake, 3 minutes is an overtime period? 4 minutes. Okay, either way, you cannot score 2 points in 8 minutes. I mean, that's what, because it's not like Fairland lit it up. I mean, Fairland scored 8 points in 8 minutes.
Well, I think in the first overtime, I want to say Fairland won the tip, which means they probably just weren't going to shoot until the very end of it. We saw that against North Adams with Fairland, where they can just run time off. But Chesapeake was able to force a turnover, and then they went for the last shot. So, I mean, I've been part of teams that we try to hold the ball as an assistant for those long periods of time, and if you don't score or you turn it over, it's a backbreaker. And they both got through that first overtime without scoring, and then the second overtime, Fairland gets the lead, and once they get the lead, they're very hard to come back from. Just like that Jackson team that we've talked about a lot this year, when you've got the good guard play, you've got free throw makers, you have a good chance to keep teams at arm's length, and that's what Fairland was able to do once they finally got the lead. So that's a big one on Wednesday. The plan is to be there. We will see weather-wise.
Yep. And,
if weather cancels us on Tuesday, we may reconvene and just kind of see. But we want to get down and we want to see, this is a big-time game. We want to see Chesapeake. So hopefully the weather cooperates tomorrow, and then we get, I think it's on you put it on the ticker, right, where we are going to be all over the place. So, yeah, but should be fun.
Yeah, plan right now is to be down there on Wednesday for the rematch. Like you said, hopefully the weather allows us to be there, and then hopefully, all things tech related work out in our favor, as well as it's definitely going to be the biggest game, the biggest conference game of the week, I think, in the Southeast District anyway. So, it should be,
because the big one in the SOC 3 is the week after.
Next week, yeah. And it's with both teams in Division 5, it's kind of a little preview into the Division 5 tournament. Even though these teams are going to be on opposite sides of the division, I think it would take a regional semi-final, either one, for them to match up for a third time. But both teams ranked within the top 3 of Division 5. So we can go ahead and jump into the previews. We're only going to talk about one game, because kind of recapping Fairland and Chesapeake is basically just a preview for that rematch on Wednesday.
And then this is probably going to be our most in-depth girls episode. Yep. So like we said, we'll go over the boys tournament brackets next week. and that'll be a much more in-depth tournament preview as well. So, but this is a big one.
Yep. Minford at Miami Trace this Tuesday. Minford 17-1, Miami Trace 19-0. So 36-1 between these two teams, both, I believe, number 1 seeds in each division.
Yes.
I think Miami Trace ended up securing the 1 seed in Division 3. Minford, the number 1 seed in Division 5. I believe Minford number 2 in the entire state of Ohio in Division 5 as well. I'm not sure where Miami Trace ranks in Division 3 in terms of the entire state, but just a lot of big names, both figuratively and literally in this matchup for both teams. You have Bennett Kaiser inside for the Falcons, then Adam Guthrie. I think he's over like 30 or 35 Division I offers to play football, but I mean, he could probably go play somewhere for basketball too. I mean, he's averaging.
He's so good. Like he's probably underrated in basketball just because of how good he is in football, and you don't think much of it. But yeah, he's an outstanding basketball player.
Yeah, 18 points, 13 rebounds per game for Guthrie. Only a junior, but you got to figure this. You know, there's probably more than. I'd say there's a pretty good chance this is his last year playing basketball. Huh? You think he'll come back?
Told him he needs to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which I mean,
he hasn't committed though.
No, but I think the coaches want him to.
Hey, it's
because I think it helps with his footwork.
Right, and sometimes we saw it with Sean Terry this year, early enrolled to Missouri, so you kind of forego your extra year of basketball. Obviously, for Miami Trace. Who was it Miami Trace was matched up with next year in the thing that's kind of in the works? Who are they? It should be a pretty good matchup, I think. I think that was one of the.
Was it Megs?
I think it was Megs, right? So that should be a good game if it happens. Hopefully, news on that will break probably sometime next year around this time.
Well, I would think we'd announce it pretty early, but we just got to make sure it's like we were supposed to have a meeting last week.
That is true.
Right now, Miami Trace is ranked 9th in the Max Preps rankings in the state.
In Division 3.
In Division 3, which is one spot ahead of Warren, who is the only loss for Minford on the season.
Yeah, so once again, Miami Trace and Minford 19-0 versus 17-1. And it's a matchup that I don't think you're going to see this. I'd be surprised if these two teams have played before. I mean, they're not
last year.
Oh, did they play last year?
Yeah, it was like a 2-year thing, yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, I doubt they've played more than 3 to 5 times.
Right.
Like they're not very close to each other. I got to imagine they're an hour and a half or 2 hours away from each other. Not in the same divisions, not in the same conferences.
Miami Trace is getting a lot bigger too, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is and also kind of where one of the programs is going to take a step back after this year. And for Miami Trace, Coach Ben Ackley and Adam Guthrie are both in here on the Coach's Call-In show on Friday. So if you haven't seen that, check that out on our YouTube page. They're the first 2 interviews. So if you don't want to stay to hear the Darth Vader voices, like something happened with my phone. I was doing it and just I'm like, this sounds awful. And then I'm like looking at Coach Hoops and Coach Cox, and they're both like they couldn't hear it either. I'm like, we gotta go. So, but yeah, they talked about this game a little bit about, that they appreciated that Minford last year would put them on the schedule because they knew what Minford had. And I think they thought that was a kind of a nod to how competitive Miami Trace was going to be. But yeah, this Miami Trace team. They've played a lot of tight games, clearly have won all of them, but they've had some big shots from people other than Guthrie. And that might be the only issue with, when your best player 6'7", 6'8", he's a post guy, it's going to be hard to get the ball inside to run your actions to get the last shot there. But, Sky Sawyers hit a 3 against Chillicothe to put him up with like 15 seconds left to win that game. Gage Bowers hit a floater on a fast break or not really fast break, but kind of
win the game against Jackson.
So win the game against Jackson with like 2 seconds left in that one. He's only a freshman. Yep. They've had guys step up. It would make big plays throughout the year. Julian Baker, who's got a bunch of offers as well for football. Trey Robinette. Yep. Like the craziest part about it.
I think Robinette committed to, where did the coach for Huntington football go? West Liberty? I think that's where Robinette committed was West Liberty.
Yeah, he's going to do well. Like it's just.
That's where. So him and Montgomery are going to go to the same school, just different sports, right. I believe. So,
so maybe they'll be roomies. Who knows? I don't know if they
same class.
Sports. Yeah.
Right.
But Yeah, for this Miami Trace team, they've had a bunch of different guys step up and make big plays throughout the season. Not just Guthrie, but it's proven with their depth. It seems like they get along really well, which is what you need to win games like this. But speaking of getting along really well, is that Minford team. So these might be like the two teams with like the best like overall like team vibes that I've seen this year of like.
Well, I mean, it also helps when
you're winning.
You're 19-0 and 17-1. I'd say that plays a pretty big
that
factor.
does help.
You can also you also see your fair share of pretty toxic teams that may have one loss on the season or that kind of thing.
Right. But, yeah. Like it's not always perfect, which perfect helps, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win a lot of games because I've been on teams that really liked each other that we were pretty good in one year and then we still really liked each other in the next season and it was not good. So these things it helps. I think the thing with Minford, even though like with Miami Trace playing more man, I think we'll give Minford a chance in this one where Miami Trace early was a lot of zone. I think it was kind of to get Guthrie to keep him on the floor while he was working his way back from a football injury. And since then, they've gone a little more manned. But this will be, I'm just really interested in this matchup because of the size and length that, Miami Trace can throw at them. But man, Minford, really 2 to 3 guys that can really score. Shoemaker at times can get going, but it's, Kaiser and Montgomery averaging almost 50 a game between them. If you can slow down one of them, but no one's really done it in the game they lost, I think they had 62 combined in that one, or 60 or 60
scored. Yeah, it was like they both had over 25, and then Shoemaker added like 9 or something like that.
Now, the big thing has got to be like Ashton Reeder, I thought played pretty well in that South Webster game that we did. Wait, I'm blanking on the Glockner. Kay Glockner, made a couple of nice plays in that game. I think they're going to need some guys off the bench. They went Ty Borland, and then they went Curtis Glenn, but not very much. If either, I wouldn't be surprised if they shortened the bench rotation in this one too. I would like to see Colt Donahoe. I think this is a game where he can compete a little bit more just because the length that Miami Trace is going to bring. But this will be a really fun game on Tuesday. I think getting over there, they do a good job of getting everyone set up and whatnot. I like going over there. It's a beautiful gym over at Miami Trace, so should look forward to that whenever we are able to get there.
So for Miami Trace, defensively, maybe one of the longer teams. I mean, you talk about Adam Guthrie inside, but Salyers and Robinette on the outside and the length they provide, and then just kind of the pure athleticism that Julian Baker provides. And Gage Bowers has obviously shown he's able to compete at a high level as, just as like I'm assuming he's, 15, 16 years old. If you're Coach Ackley defensively, are you zoning up or are you going man? And if you're going man, do you put Guthrie on Kaiser or do you put Guthrie on Shoemaker? So big meaty matchup between those two potentially. And if you do, this is about a 3-part question. If you decide to put Guthrie on Shoemaker, do you just put, whether it's Salyers or Robinette on Kaiser and just kind of go length on height?
I think you're going to see Shoemaker and Guthrie, just I think on both ends, just because like he's so strong that I do think Shoemaker can at least match him, at least come close to matching him there. I think
meat on meat.
Yeah, just the meaty dudes just battling, and you've got I think early in the season. The funny thing is, I think while they were playing how they don't really like to play with Miami Trace, I think I would have taken Miami Trace in this because of the zone. But I don't know if they're going to play a lot of zone when it comes tournament time. So I don't know if they go zone in this one. I think their zone is excellent, but I do think that, I think it's a good idea to at least throw it at them on occasion. I think Coach Ackley is one of the top coaches in our area, and, you don't get to 19-0 on accident.
And I think a lot of people, including myself, kind of had Miami Trace taking a step back this season. Yeah. I mean, I picked Jackson. I picked Jackson to win the league. I was like, man, this Miami Trace team graduated like 3 or 4 of their starting 5 from a season ago.
Grant Guest left and
Yeah.
goes and as a rotation guy for carrying Alder, who's one of the better teams in the state.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, they're going to take a step back, and no, they have leapt forward. But it was kind of like what Robinette and Salyers were able to do. And then you see Gage Bowers as a freshman has been able to step in a big way. Cade Whitaker, Luke Armstrong, a couple other guys that have really been helpful for them throughout this year. It's just, it's a team that they've played really well. I think this might be their biggest challenge of the season. They beat a Hilliard Davidson team by a similar score, well, lower scoring, but a similar score that Minford did early in the season. So I think we've got a really good matchup. I am interested to see how the coaches look at it as far as defensive matchups. I think that, there's a chance that Miami Trace could just try to attack inside all over the court because it's going to be, they're going to have a size and strength advantage at pretty much every spot besides maybe, Kaiser's length. But yeah, I think this one has the chance to be a very, very good basketball game on Tuesday or whenever it ends up getting played, because it sounds like they're definitely going to be playing it.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on what weather comes.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited to see outside of Guthrie who steps up maybe as that secondary scorer for them, or potentially who even leads them in scoring if it's not Guthrie. As I think, if Miami Trace can get a solidified second score, that could obviously give Minford some problems. And this one is, like you said, I mean, it's one of the more anticipated games here in the second half of the season in the Southeast District.
Yeah, and they both
of them.
Both. Yeah. They both have done their job of getting to this spot where we kind of expected them to be. Maybe, I think we were hoping maybe that Minford would be unbeaten at this point too, but I mean, one loss and it by 2 to the 2 seed in Division 3 is nothing to hang your head about.
All right, we can go and move into the quick picks for the boys' side. We tried to keep it short, but I think it was still close to an hour. We've got 5 games we're going to pick. We got about 30 seconds before we start. The 5 games: Western at Sims Valley, Wheelersburg at Fairland, Southeastern at Southern, Northwest at Eastern, and Circleville at Hillsboro. After last week, my 4-game lead dwindled down to 1, so we're more or less neck and neck.
Thank you, Brody Buchanan.
Here with probably only 2 or 3.
And Marley Halcomb.
Yeah, only 2 or 3 games, only 2 or 3 weeks left to go, and I'm not sure this first pick is going to help my case any. But the first game we're going to go with is Western at Sims Valley. It was a 6-point game in the first meeting. It was a 6-point win for Sims Valley in Latham. Now the second meeting between these two, it seems like Sims Valley's playing a little bit better. With that being said, I'm going to take Western in this one. Sims Valley played Eastern to like a 2 or 3 point game the other night after losing by 19 to them in Beaver. But I don't know why. I've got like an attachment to this Western team. I really like watching them play, and I think they get the win in this one.
Well, I think Western has a little more depth of scoring. It seems like that it's a little balanced at times for Sims Valley, but really
they got the Carpenter kid and
I think Corn as well. Yeah, if Ethan Smith isn't going ballistic, it's going to be tough for Sims Valley. That being said, they were very competitive at home. They should have won that game. They took a couple bad shots late against Eastern. And even with that being said, I'm going to take Sims Valley in a tight one.
Yeah, I think I saw Sims at their very worst, which I don't think helps my impression of them too much. All right, second game on the slate, Wheelersburg at Fairland. This one's fairly easy for me. Wheelersburg not quite up to the same standard as they were last year with that district final appearance. Obviously they graduate Swords and Lattimore, but they just haven't been able to find that spark that I felt like kind of propelled them to a 20-win regular season. I believe they finished with 20 wins in the regular season. I can't remember for sure, but Fairland has just been tough this year. Brody Buchanan, a big reason for that. They've got a couple other guys that contribute as well, so I'm going to go with the Dragons at home in this one.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. It's the Dragons. Wheelersburg just has not played very well, especially since the turn of the year. It's been a struggle for the Pirates, and then anytime you take on Brady Buchanan and the Dragons, it's going to be even tougher. So give me the Dragons.
All right, game 3, Southeastern at Southern. Southern, I believe, the 3 or 4 seed in Division 6. I think Southeastern in Division 6 as well. They're either 5 or 6, I would assume.
6.
I saw Southeastern in person at Waverly. It was a close game with the Tigers. Southeastern's been playing good basketball. They played Eastern Pike pretty close the other day. For Southern, winning their first TVC Hawking title in quite some time. I think I'm going to go with the Panthers in this one. I think they've been playing some really good basketball lately. I'm not sure how competitive Southern's schedule has been, and I'm not too familiar with their team, so I'm going to go with Southeastern.
Big thing. So Southern is D7, so they're the
They're
three.
D7.
Yeah, they're the 3 and D7.
Whatever Notre Dame was in, I couldn't remember.
It's been very difficult for teams to win at Southern so far this year. This is a very good early 80s, late 70s matchup because those are the two best programs in the Southeast were these two programs. Well, probably Portsmouth as well, but I think ultimately Southeastern has done some things to really stay in games I didn't think they were going to this year. So because of that, I'm going to take Southeastern. Also because Southern lost to River Valley.
I think that's what I was trying to get at. Is I looked at Southern's schedule and they had like one really bad loss, which
it was at home. That was the other thing. Yeah.
All right, Game 4, Northwest at Eastern. The Mohawks actually bettered the Eagles in McDermott, but I'm not sure this is going to happen this time around. Northwest had a nice win against Oak Hill last week, but Eastern's rolling. They're the number 2 seed in Division 6. Actually, I think they're the number 1 seed in Division 6, just ahead of North Adams. I think the Eagles get another one here. I'm sure they've already clinched the SOC 2 title, but if not, they're going to do it here. So
yeah, they need Sims Valley to either lose or them to win out. And I think that this gets them one game closer to winning out or just outright does it because I think ultimately they're going to get their revenge at home where they've been very good so far this year. I just think Tucker Lice is on another level than throwing Declan Davis, Boston Webb. This is a very good team. Give me Eastern, Fly Eagles Fly.
All right, Game 5, we got about 50 seconds to go. Circleville at Hillsboro. You know, Circleville, I think they've got a first-year head coach over there this season. Obviously, Nungester, a big addition in the offseason for the Tigers. I think Hillsboro early on had a lot of promise, but it just seems like they're dragging their feet a little bit to the finish line here. It's a road matchup for Circleville, but ultimately I'm going to pick the Tigers in a non-conference win.
Yeah, it's just, I think early in the season, even like before the season, actually, really after I watched Circleville fall apart against Zane Trace in the first game where they're up like 10 at the half, lose by 16, had a couple technicals, just seemed like it was going to fall apart for them. It has not. They've played pretty well throughout the year. I think they're going to finish either second or third in the MSL, so a pretty nice year for them. Hillsboro, it's just kind of falling apart. I don't know if Tate Davis is healthy for this. If he was, and I knew it, maybe, but I will take Circleville in this one.
There we go. All right, another successful week of quick picks. I think we picked all the same except for the Western Sims Valley game. I wasn't sure how you would go with Southeastern and Southern. I figured with Southern being a top 4 seed in D7, you might slide with them.
Have you seen the Mighty Ducks movies?
I mean, I know what it is, but I've never watched it.
Okay, so I got a text from a friend, an old friend, who said, is Coach Bombay on Southern? There's a kid that looks identical to Emilio Estevez in the Mighty Ducks movie. In the team picture on the Carson's article from the other day, and I thought about just taking them for that, but tornadoes, ducks don't fly together in tornadoes, so that's why I had to go with the Panthers on the road. But man, it just feels like Southeastern every time. Like I think, well, they've gotten blown out a couple times.
Like 14-6, aren't they, or something like that? Yeah. I mean, they've had
a really nice season.
Yeah.
So we saw them down at Waverly.
4 of their 6 losses are to Unioto and Zane Trace, and I think they lost to Westfall too, maybe.
Yes, they split with Westfall.
So there's 5,
and then they lost to Waverly.
And they lost. Right,
2-point game to Waverly where they had a couple
they just
shots.
Lost to Eastern Pike too, so maybe
that's 7.
Maybe 7. Yeah, I'm not
sure. Maybe they beat Westfall twice. I don't know. I thought
they had. Maybe they did.
Waverly, they're 9-5, so 14-7.
Oh, 14-7. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, but yeah, they've had a nice season. They hadn't been over 500 for a long time.
We could just rattle off all of Southeastern's losses. Yeah. That's kind of funny.
But yeah, it's a Southeastern team. I think Lane Williams is, depending on the matchup, has had some huge games so far this year. I know he had a couple really big ones against Paint Valley, averaged like 20 points a game against them. And, I think ultimately he can make the difference down the stretch for them. But I also like what the Strawswell can do for him. So that's going to be a game. Definitely going to keep an eye on that one because of just kind of what Southern's done so far this year. It's their first league title in quite some time. We haven't really talked a whole lot about the TVC because we haven't had a ton of coverage of them. Shout out Carson Francis for going down there on Friday. or I think he went to Belpre on Friday. So congrats to the Tornadoes on the win. And anytime you win your league is always a good thing, especially when it's been a long time. They're state runner up, or maybe Final Four in like 1980, 1982. At times they've been really good, but like a lot of small communities, they go through some gaps. And ultimately, this year is not one of those gaps, as they've played pretty well this year.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the girls basketball segment of the show. We're going to quickly recap 3 girls basketball games from this past week, all league championships in the Southeast District, and then we're going to move on to the tournament bracket breakdowns. If you weren't around last year, we essentially go through. This year, we're going to go D4, D5, D6, and D7 because really the only other division for us with teams is Division 3, but it's not even a full district. So we're not going to fill out brackets for those, but we definitely might talk about that bracket itself a little bit on next week's show.
Yes.
But we essentially go through and fill out each of the brackets, so D4 through D7, and just fill them out kind of similar to a March Madness bracket, if you're more familiar with that kind of thing. But we're going to start off with our 3 recaps from this past week. First 2 down in Portsmouth, 2 conference championships, 2 conference champions were crowned in P-Town this past Monday. The first the game we were at. The second meeting between Portsmouth and Fairland, the Trojans completing the season sweep and moving on to, I think it's 14-0 in the OVC. Are there 8 teams total in the OVC?
Yes.
So you play obviously 14 league games against 7 teams twice. It was a 47-35 win over the Dragons for Portsmouth. At the time, I think they moved to 20-0, but since they've went 1-1 because they lost to a really good Mount Notre Dame team. But Portsmouth and Fairland are the 1 and 2 seed in Division 5 here in the Southeast District. I think both of them are very clear favorites to win a district title and advance to the regional tournament. But it was just another showing that, this Portsmouth team is the real deal. And I believe claiming their first outright OVC title in school histories. They've, only been in the OVC for about a decade now or so. So girls basketball at Portsmouth is really taken off here the last few years.
Yeah, Coach Hughes's, I guess, say her and her dad, have done an outstanding job with that program. It was pretty low for a while. Now, obviously, there's a lot of talent there because, Santa Allen's going to go play somewhere pretty high level. Daisha Reed is going to play, I believe, Division 2, but either way, she's going to really play. Kiki Woods, Haven Carter, you've got some players that can really play. And, and that takes, but that also takes good coaching to be able to help you go to that next level as it would be. So, and that's what they've been able to do. Last year, they got to the state tournament for the first time in school history. This year, finished the regular season 21-1, playing one of the top schedules in the state. When I checked it, it was after they had played Fairland and before they had played Mount Notre Dame. When I checked it, they had played the second best schedule in the state, and I would guess that it probably has jumped because of that Mount Notre Dame game as well. Mount Notre Dame knocked off both Portsmouth and Fairland this year. When before that game, I believe Mount Notre Dame was number 9 in the state. Portsmouth was number 10 across all divisions. Ends up being a pretty good game over there in Cincinnati. So for Portsmouth, they're going to finish the regular season 21-1. Georgetown is NAIA.
NAIA.
All right. Yeah. Good job. That was good research by you.
Thank
I could
you.
see it out of the corner of my eye the entire time as you looked up like 8 different things. So Portsmouth in this one jumped out to an 11-0 lead, and then the 47-35 final was the biggest the lead was. After that, at one point, Fairland took the lead in the second half, but it was they took the lead. I think they had like 2 possessions with the ball, couldn't score. They took a couple of kind of wild shots, and then once Portsmouth was able to take the lead back, it was all Trojans from there. Sienna Allen, co-Division 5 Player of the Year in the district, led the way, 17 points, 9 rebounds. Her co-Division 5 Player of the Year, Daisha Reed, had 5 points in the game, but I thought still played a pretty good game. She did a good job defensively, where she didn't shoot it particularly well, but I thought defensively she did a really good job slowing down the guards for Fairland in this one. Kiki Woods, like, I don't know. If you watch her play, like, she doesn't run out of energy ever.
No.
And it's you think you're by her, so then you're going to make a pass, and it's like she recovers so quickly that she's going to get a hand on it. Like, it's just the biggest thing for Kiki Woods is going to be to stay out of foul trouble, because she's so active, and if she gets in foul trouble, that can cause some issues for them because of what all she does. She's one of the better. Like, she's not very big, so it's going to be tough for her at the next level. But I could see where someone's going to want her, because like we would take her on our team anytime. But like, just size wise, it's going to be tough. But man, like, that motor, you can't teach that. She scored 15 points in this game. I had her for 4 steals, but that doesn't even go with how many deflections she had in that game as well. Haven Carter had 8 points, 7 rebounds. I thought she did a really good job on the block for them. Maybe the only issue I can see with Portsmouth is a couple of different players, when they got the ball, just were not looking to score ever. So maybe it leaves you with only 4.
Which is still a few more options than a lot of teams have.
Yeah, but I think when you get to, and it probably doesn't happen until they get to the Final Four or the Elite or the championship, you're going to have teams that can guard all 5 spots, where up until then, you may not be facing teams that can guard all of them. So they're going to zone, and you try to zone them, and Sienna Allen and Daisha Reed are going to shoot you out of it. Or they're going to run their stuff so well, and they're going to get it to Kiki Woods inside, and she's going to find Haven Carter. Haven Carter's going to score inside. So this team is very well coached. I really liked what they do. Obviously, a very deserving OVC champion, as they beat Fairland by double figures twice. This game was much closer than the 47-35 score. But I think the biggest thing, only thing I have down for Fairland in my notes, is that Ava Lane, the freshman, had 12 points in the game. They didn't do a whole lot. Bailey Russell had a tough night shooting. Cameron Barnett's had a tough night shooting. Both of them are 1,000-point scorers, and Portsmouth decided they were going to put the clamps on them, and they did a really good job of it. Addison Godby didn't have a great night scoring, but I think she had like 6 or 7 assists in the game, so she still contributed in a good way. But they've got to find some consistent scoring when teams are trying to cut down on those 2 guards on the outside, and Barnett's and Russell. They ended up finishing their regular season 16-6. Or no, 17-5, because they ended up losing to a really good Marietta team that will,
lost by, I think, 13, was it? Which is,
they got down big early and they cut into the lead a good bit before the half, and ultimately Marietta was just a little bit too much. When you get down big, it's really hard to come back on good teams, and that's ultimately what they were. So for Fairland, the 5 losses is the most they've had in a while. But man, they're a team, they've went to a different region than Portsmouth. So Portsmouth's going to be in the southeast along with the east. And I think Portsmouth's going to pretty easily get out. Where Fairland is in the southwest, which then you're playing the Cincinnati teams. But I think they've got a really good chance to get to that Elite 8. I would have to look at it again on some of the teams in the Elite 8, but I think their road to get to the Elite 8 is very open. I'm going to talk about one of their games that I could see being a sneaky one, not necessarily will be, and not a guarantee that it'll even happen. But I think Fairland's got an excellent chance to get back to the Elite 8, which I think would be the 4th straight year. They've been outstanding, back-to-back Final Fours for them. And really, if this matchup would play in the state semifinal, it wouldn't shock me if Fairland would be able to win. But ultimately, Portsmouth has been a machine all year. And obviously, you lose Daisha Reed, Savannah Cantrell, but you're going to return a whole lot for next year as well. So wouldn't surprise me if they have a similar season next season as well.
All right, and then we'll move on to the other conference championship in Portsmouth last Monday. It was the second meeting between Green and Notre Dame, and Green once again coming out on top, this time by a 58-56 final. Sophomore Maddie Hayslip led the way with 19 points, along with a game-winning shot with a little over 2 seconds to go that ultimately clinched the win for the Bobcats, along with their first SOC title since 1999.
And that's a long time.
26 seasons.
Yeah, she also had 6 assists in the game. Hayslip we saw them last year, and really we could see what Hayslip was able to do, but it wasn't as nearly as much as what Appy Knapp was able to do. 1,000-point scorer already. We've talked about Knapp at length here on Overtime presented by Perfection One, but obviously she's been outstanding. 16 points, 13 rebounds in this one. She also had the game-winning assists to Hayslip on that play. But Hayslip's growth, I think, is really what has put Green over the top, made them 19-1, made them SOC1 champions. And ultimately, you need more than one piece. So in this game, Hayslip leads them in scoring with 19. Elizabeth McBee, a freshman, 9 points, 9 rebounds in that game. So, you're getting Blizzard, who I've talked about at different times, as she's only going to shoot threes. Hit 2 threes in this game. Only shot threes. But it's just like they've got different pieces. Coach Knapp has done a great job with them. And they're a team that I think can make a pretty deep run in the tournament. I don't know if they can beat Waterford. I don't know if anyone's beating Waterford this year in Division 7, but I think they've got an excellent chance to get to the regionals and then maybe beyond. If some good things happen for them. So ultimately a really good win for Green and really for Notre Dame. They're going to finish, or right now they're 11-8. I think you look at it, maybe they look at it as maybe a disappointing season, but at the same time, 3 of their they had 4 players in double figures. 3 of them are either freshmen or sophomores. You played Green to, I believe it was 3 points the first time, 2 points the second time. So you're not that far off. I think they're pretty close to just being right back where they've been. And, Bree Hicks, a senior who really seems to step up in the biggest game for them. I had them in the district finals in volleyball. She stepped up and was outstanding in that match. In this one, she has 15 points, 5 for 5 from 3-point range. I think your best game was what, 4 for 4?
No, I went.
You're 5
for 6.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With a free throw.
Yes, I knew it was 16, but I couldn't remember for sure how you got there. But
all moving threes.
That's right.
0 feet were set that night,
or ever.
No, wherever. Yeah.
Lauren Trinidad, a freshman, 12.7 rebounds. Laney Strickland, also a freshman, 10 points and 7 rebounds. And then Jason Bryant with 10 points, a sophomore for Notre Dame. So they're not very far off. I think, Green, it's probably their league for the next couple of years because you've got the 3 big players from this game coming back. I think you've got the entire roster coming back actually for next year, but I think these are going to be 2 really good games next year as well. So looking forward to covering those when that time comes.
Yeah, I don't know how many league games they won in a row to finish last season, but just counting this season, like they're winning 30 league games in a row. Like I just don't see them losing any league games. If this group, especially Hayslip and Knapp, if they can stay together for the next,
stay healthy
for the next 2 seasons, like including they're going to go 10-0 this season, next season, and probably the year after. Like I said, I'm not sure how many league games they won in a row to finish last season, but obviously they snapped that 100 plus conference winning
streak.
Was it
126?
I can't remember. You see Afrocentric lost the other day? I think that broke one of their, because they hold it with like 144. I don't think they were currently on that streak, but I think they were building another long one. It was over 100 consecutive games. I think it was 126 consecutive SOC1 conference or SOC1 league games in a row for the Titans. And I don't think Green is necessarily going to go on that kind of run, but I think they're definitely going to win, 20, 30. I'm going 30 plus conference games in a row. Other than Notre Dame, I'm just not sure any of the other SOC1 school. I mean, it seems like New Boston maybe isn't too far off, maybe, but
Clay's still young.
Yeah, Clay's got some players, obviously, but like teams like East. I think that's about it. Actually, I think that's think I might be missing one in there that I'm not.
Well, there's like Ironton St. Joe could have a team.
Yeah, but that's not.
But they don't always like. Green beat East tonight, 59-20. Knapp with 22, Hayslip with 15, and McBee with 13. So just kind of continues on.
Yeah, but there was a team that I was. Let me just look at it real quick since I already have it pulled up. Nope, that was no. I named all of them. Yeah, Green, Notre Dame,
it's
New Boston, and Clayton East. So, all right.
I'll tell you what, and I'm going to segue it. I'll tell you what game I would like to see next year would be Green and Fayetteville playing, because I got to see Fayetteville for the first time last Wednesday on the ice day. I got a call like, "Oh, are you going to be able to get down there? The ice is so bad." I'm like, "There's no ice anywhere. There was no ice anywhere at any point. It was raining and it was like 36, but apparently there was ice somewhere. I don't know, but thankfully there was not on the way there. Got to hang out with our Raymond Gleedle, who took some really good pictures of that game the first time at the launch pad for Fayetteville. And man, they're tough. I mean, they finished the regular season 18-4, 12-1, Shack 2 champions. I think their only loss was to Eastern Brown. Or no, their only loss was to Whiteoak. So they end up winning that game 58-45 over Whiteoak. Once again, 100% was closer than what the final says. It was Whiteoak took the lead in the fourth quarter. I believe they went up 42-41 with like 6 minutes left. Kara Rummel hits a runner for Fayetteville, and then it was all Fayetteville from there. Christina Murphy had a couple of baskets. They just Ava Baker had one as well. Aubrey Barber, Riley Kleemeyer, they just built a lead to end the game. A 17-3 run to finish the game for Fayetteville as they win their second consecutive Shack 2 championship. Like I said, really impressed with what this team has returning. Riley Kleemeyer, a senior, leads the Shack as a whole in rebounding, provides them some really good length. But besides what they're going to lose with her, which is around a double-double game, not the easiest thing to replace. Kara Rummel, 15 points, 6 rebounds in this game. Aubrey Barber, 14 points. Christina Murphy, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Those are all sophomores that are coming back. Lily Carlier didn't play in the game, only a junior. Baker, only a junior. Scarlett Crawford, another junior. Like, they've got so many pieces that are coming back. They had a really good JV team that played as well, which you don't see a whole lot of in our area. So, I mean, you could tell they're well coached. This is a team that I would like to see in the lower divisions. You know, they're Division 6. I would like to see them match up with someone like a Green, where the school size doesn't matter as much. Right. But I thought their ability to play 7 to 8 players and not really have a drop off was really impressive for that level. And also that you could just tell, like, I didn't count the assists, like count them up as a whole, but it felt like there was an assist on like 75% of their baskets, which you don't see a whole lot of. Barber was able to stretch the floor in the first half, did a good job knocking down some shots. Just overall was really impressed with what they were able to do. And for Whiteoak, I mean, you lose this game by 13, you end up finishing the regular season 14-6, 10-3. You're playing without your senior point guard in Kylie Ham. So early, they really struggled handling the ball and progressively got better throughout the game. I really liked what I saw of them. They have some really good underclassmen as well. But they were led in scoring that night by Addie Roberts with 11 points. Addie Halke with 10 points, 10 rebounds. Her sister, Charlie Halke, was 7. Jillian Lucas, only a freshman, with 10. The Halkes are sophomores. I think Tori Lucas is another sophomore for them coming back, maybe a junior, but either way, they're going to return the majority of their team, and they really competed well in this game without a really good senior in Kylie Ham. Hopefully she's able to come back for the tournament. They don't play until, I believe, Thursday of this week. They were supposed to play on Monday. That game ended up getting canceled for one reason or another, but I think this Whiteoak and Fayetteville rivalry could be one to watch for in the future. But I think ultimately it's going to be Fayetteville's league for at least the next couple of seasons as well.
All right, time to move on to the bracket breakdowns, I guess we'll call it. We're going to go through each of the Southeast District girls tournament brackets for Division 4, 5, 6, and 7. There is not a Division 3, not a guaranteed Division 3 district champion out of the Southeast. Is kind of the winner of the Southeast is the winner of a district semi.
Yeah, so we'll say it's going to be Marietta. Marietta against the winner of Unioto Athens is, instead of it being a district final, is a district semi, and then they move on to face the winner from the East, which will be a district final, because the Southeast only has 6 teams. I think the East may only have 7. So either way, it's 2 very small districts that are having to come together for one district. So not really going to pick that.
Where's Sheridan at? Is Sheridan not in the Southeast
Sheridan's
anymore?
in 3.
Oh, they're in 3 as well.
But Sheridan's the 4, which is why, before I saw Marietta against Fairland, I was like, oh, they might want to watch out for Sheridan. I'm not sure if Marietta has to watch out for anybody at this point. I do think that they probably got the worst that they could have gotten, where it would be you face Sheridan and then likely Unioto. No offense to Athens, but I just feel like they're maybe a step or 2 behind the other 2, but where Athens gets the 3 instead of Sheridan getting the 3, I think it makes it to where it's going to be a little tougher for Marietta, but Marietta is absolutely loaded. It's going to take a lot for either Unioto or Athens or Sheridan to knock them off.
All right, you ready to move on to the bracket breakdowns?
Let's go.
All right, so it's our second year doing this. We kind of didn't even add up what we got last year. We just kind of
season ended.
Yeah.
Overtime presented by our last sponsor ended. So
yeah, although we will be able to kind of recap everything, as we're only going to the district tournaments, and we're gonna have a Sunday show. Oh no, we're gonna have a Monday show after a Sunday where all the boys finals are over. So we should be able to recap them and actually count up all of the. I forget how we did it last year. I think we kind of did it like golf, and we counted the amount of losses you had, and whoever had the least amount of losses.
Well, I think we could do like points for each round. So like the first round can be 1, then 2, then 3 or 4, whatever.
No,
however we decide to do it.
You could maybe everything's 1, but then you get 2 for a district final, correct? Maybe. I don't know. It's harder to predict the earlier rounds, I think. Once you get later, it's.
Hey, we got like 1 district champion different.
Do we? We have 2.
Oh, we have 2? Let's go. Yeah. Boys, I think will be a little more wide open, but I think the top end of our girls' coverage is just very, very, very good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take pictures of all of these and put them on the screen so there's like a visual so you can read them.
You could throw them on the Twitter. So
I don't know if I'll do that, but nobody looks at anything on Twitter. So
oh man, like I looked so smart last week and no one saw it. I completely predicted how Adina was going to beat Hillsborough. Like literally said what was going to happen. He screenshots it, throws it up or clips it, throws it up on Twitter, and it got no traction besides me and our main account. And then like no one even interacted with the main account. Like I thought that was gonna like once that happened, I was like, oh okay, that'll be good. Nope. I did get a text from our coach, so that was good. So.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll put a graphic up of the brackets, but I'm probably not.
I got a text on the Edward Jones coach's hotline, but I got a text.
Yeah. All right.
We didn't really get to use it on Friday or Thursday because my phone broke.
So we'll start with Division 4, and I think since there's a visual, you can kind of see where everybody's going. So I think it's really only going to make sense to kind of note like differences we have, and there's no point of really going over every game, or we're going to be here for another hour if we do that. So just looking at the district first round in some of the games, you have Gallia and Washington, Warren and Jackson, Logan Elm and Waverly, which I think is probably the best game in the district first round here in the Division 4 tournament. And then you have South Point and Vinton County at the bottom. So in the district first round, we actually have just one difference, and it's that Gallia and Washington Courthouse game. I have Gallia getting out. You have Courthouse getting out. Either way, we both have Fairfield Union moving on over either of those teams. And the district quarterfinal round is also where we have another difference is I have Warren over Hillsborough, and you have Hillsborough over Warren.
Yeah, I think that one has a chance to be a pretty good game. And it seems like Warren has been like on the verge of being really good and then just hasn't. So where you picked them, and I thought Hillsborough. What was it you said? Was it like 3 games?
Hillsborough they've lost 4 games this year, and 3 of them are by a combined 5 points. Because you lost to McLean twice by 2 and Adina by 1.
Right. So I mean,
the other one was like they lost by 10 to Western Brown or something, but that was like their first game of the year.
Right. So I mean, we like early in the season, I definitely would have taken Warren, but I ended up just going with Hillsborough on that. But I'll tell you the one that scares me, even though we both took
Logan Elm and Waverly.
No, I mean for the second round.
Oh, okay.
We both took McLean over South Point. And the OVC is so good that I don't know. Like, but I just thought with McLean only having the 1 loss was why I did it. But yeah, ultimately, I think that has a chance to be a sneaky game.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Warren, but they just have like a certain amount of like aura to them.
Well,
to where like I find it hard. Like I feel like Warren is just kind of like good at everything. Like,
so
I don't know.
Here's what I'll say about Warren. I don't know how the Big Blacks of Point Pleasant are this year, but they play in a 4-team league.
Twin Peaks or Twin States?
Twin States, yeah. Yeah, the Twin States League with Marietta, who's undefeated, and Fort Fry, who has like 2 losses, or maybe it's 3 losses, like Waterford, and we'll say it's like Waterford and then Marietta twice. Like they're playing really, really good competition. And I think the aura that you mentioned with Warren has to do with like they're not that far out of our coverage area, but they play enough teams outside of our coverage area that we don't know all that much about them, and we don't really see them that often. But when we do see them, it's deep in the tournament in boys and girls, and then it's like, oh well, this team's always good. So because of that,
I've liked what I've seen out of Hillsborough. I mean, I didn't pick them against McLean both times and they lose both of those games. And I picked them. I got to stop picking Hillsborough because I picked them last week against Adina. So I'm 0-3 on my Hillsborough picks this year. So they'll probably get a win here when I finally go against them. But Hillsborough's a tough team. Just Warren, I don't know. Warren just seems like they might cause Hillsborough some problems and kind of join that club of teams that beat Hillsborough by 1 or 2 points. So
well, you mentioned having a bad time with teams on the road. There's my last pick. I picked Fairfield Union to beat Circleville purely because I'm 0 for the season picking against Fairfield Union. So I'm like, I'm jumping on board now.
Yeah.
Which, sorry, Fairfield Union, if that ends up biting you. But they've been really good so far this year. That's why I've got them as my district champion, and I'm guessing why you have them as yours as well.
And we can just kind of quickly go over it. Any specific reason why we're both going Circleville over McLean in the district semis?
I think the Circleville size, will help.
I think Circleville is maybe, and I kind of say this without knowing McLean's roster fully in my head, but I kind of know Circleville's. I feel like Circleville has maybe tested themselves in the non-conference a little more.
Yeah, like Circleville's got Unioto coming up on Tuesday.
I think they beat Athens this season as well.
They beat Athens
Obviously,
on Saturday.
They play Fairfield Union twice, which that's in conference.
Play Amanda twice. I mean, they play Bloom twice, who's not as good as they've been, but like they've played a really tough schedule, and that gets you ready. And I think that's ultimately, I think their league is better than the FAC, and that's why.
And obviously only one team gets out, and we both have Fairfield Union winning the Division 4 district title. So we can go ahead and move on to the big one. This is Division 5. We have 22 teams in this one. Who's the 22 seed?
Okay. See, the problem is with so many. I know who the 1 seed is. 1 seed's Portsmouth.
You don't even probably know off the top of your head who's all in here.
That's the problem. So I'm going to throw
I'll just say
out. Is there a league?
I'm not going to give you that, but I'll give you a hint. We had a very.
This will be fun.
We had a joke. It's not really like a punchline joke, but we had kind of a joke going on with this team, like maybe halfway through the season because of something that happened. and we were going to criticize. Maybe not.
Megs.
Yeah, Megs is the 22 seed.
Hey, they won a game though.
Who did they beat?
Hannah, West Virginia.
Okay.
I think if you go on,
they beat them.
I think they beat them pretty bad. They might have been twice.
Somebody else beat them as like their only wins. I'm not. It may have been Oak Hill. They beat like Hannon twice, and then like a Christian Academy school, I think. But for Division 5,
they could beat that like Fairview.
Oh, Fairview. Kentucky. Yeah. For Division 5, there's three districts in Division 5. So we'll just go Southeast 1, Southeast 2, and Southeast 3. We'll start with Southeast 1. So there's 3 district quarterfinal games, and we have the exact same picks for all of them, with Alexander, Huntington, and Piketon all getting out of the district quarterfinal round. In the district semis, we remain the same. We're actually the exact same for the entire district. As we both have Portsmouth beating Piketon in the district semis. For Piketon, it's just a tough draw. You got to play Portsmouth. And between Huntington and Alexander, I believe Huntington beat Alexander already.
Yes.
In the regular season, Alexander just had a big win over Athens too. I'm not sure if it had any real effects on the TVC race, but it was kind of a big upset.
They had lost to maybe River Valley, and that's what made it to where they finished a game back.
But still, like a big a big conference win and a big upset win for the Spartans over the Lady Bulldogs. But then we both have Portsmouth over Huntington in that district, so I don't think there's much to go over here. I mean, Piketon and Westfall are going to play twice. We're actually picking this game twice this week because we're picking it here in the division, in the bracket breakdowns, and then the regular season makeup game on Tuesday is going to be one of our quick picks. So they're going to end up playing each other twice this week, one for the regular season and then one for the district quarterfinal. Are there any of these games you want to go over in depth? We both have that district ending the same way, but not sure if you want to go over any of the early district quarterfinal or semifinal matches.
Still in that top one?
Yes, Southeast one.
I mean,
Piketon, Westfall, Huntington, Zane, Trace, and Alexander and Southeastern. So 5 of the 6 teams are out of the Saddle Valley Conference. That's your ballpark.
As you mentioned, Piketon, Westfall playing twice in 3 days. That could make that interesting.
It was a 6-point game at Piketon, and the only game they've played this year.
Yeah, so
Westfall is like barely lost to like
a bunch of teams.
Piketon, Zane, Trace, and Huntington. Like they just can't get over that hump, but they're playing all of them really close.
Right. So they've got 2 nice players in Mole and Cook. So they are, not too far off. I think that one's got a chance to be interesting. I think Huntington and Alexander for a second time. I think it ended up being like a 13-point game the first time. I know it was a really good win for Huntington. Huntington finished the season on a roll. I kind of joked with Coach Urick, who won his 100th game last week, that I had. So he won.
Well, that could have been a headline.
Yeah, but I'll tell you. I'll get to that in a second. So.
Oh, we didn't even mention. Hillsborough's coach either.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about
Fairfield Hall of Fame.
Although
we already went over Division 4.
We did go over Division 4.
Hopefully she's still watching.
Yeah. So, are they one of our quick picks?
No.
Okay, so shout out to Coach Storr for getting in the Fairfield Hall of Fame. So obviously an outstanding career there, and I think she's on her way to getting in the Hillsborough as a coach.
Good start. I'm not sure how many years has she been there.
Not sure.
I'm not either.
But so that Huntington, early in the season, well, I'm updating the uniotobasketball.weebly.com. So if you ever want to know anything about the SVC basketball, check that out. As far as history goes, SVC sportstalk.weebly.com is where you find out on this season. And I guess the last 2 seasons too. But for Coach Urick with Huntington, I was like looking at him, I was like, oh, if he wins 16 games, he's going to get to 100 career wins. They started off like 4-3 or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. He's not winning 16 games. Well, found out like his wife reached out to Shane Combs because he had always done a lot of that stuff. And he reached out to me and I was like, oh crap, he had already done it. So, but the good thing is they were able to celebrate it before their game on Saturday that he had won 100. So he's won 101. They finished with 17 wins and had a really nice season. So ultimately, I think they're going to be able to, take on that Portsmouth team. I don't think they have the depth of scoring to do much against that Portsmouth team, though. So I think Portsmouth's going to have a pretty easy run. But
so you think without Wheelers, well, I guess they would have had to have finished above North Adams too. I was going to say without Wheelersburg beating Minford, if you thought Huntington may have slid up into the 4 spot, but they're still behind North Adams at 5. Yeah. Obviously, you really didn't want that 6 spot, right. Which, with Portsmouth, it's going to be really tough to get out. So, all right, we can go ahead and move on to the Southeast 2 side. So this is where Minford, and I'm not sure why the Southeast 2 isn't, why isn't Fairland in the Southeast? Why isn't, you know what I mean?
So they are, okay.
Why isn't Fairland as the 2 seed the leader in the Southeast 2? And I don't know.
So here's what it is, though. It's when it goes to the tournament, the Southeast 1 and Southeast 2 goes to the Southeast region, where Portsmouth could have chosen to go into the Southeast 3. They got their choice of which bracket they wanted to go into. So,
I didn't know there was meaning behind the numbers. I thought it was just there's 3 Southeast districts, so we're just going to call them 1, 2, 3.
That's kind of what I thought also. I wasn't sure if there would be meaning where they could just easily say, okay, the Southeast 2.
This year, the Southeast 1 decided to go here.
The Southeast 2 could go to the Southwest, but, that would be why.
All right, well, we're going to go in numerical order in terms of what the Southeasts are labeled. So we're going to move into the Southeast 2. So this is where Minford leads the way as the number 3 seed. And we can look at all of the district quarterfinal. They're actually they're the highest seed that has to play a district quarterfinal game. Now it's against Megs and it's at home. We both have them winning that game.
That's a horrible trip.
Yeah.
That's a bad trip.
But we both have Minford winning that one. And then we only have one other difference, and it's in that same, what would have been sectional, Chesapeake and West Union in the district quarterfinal. This one is at Chesapeake. I have the Panthers getting out of that one. You have West Union moving on. West Union was felt like a really promising team out of the shack early in the season, but then I feel like just Eastern Brown and North Adams just kind of reasserted their dominance in the shack.
They started off 4-0, and then they were 5-2 and had a 4-game losing streak, and since then it's been pretty much
finished
back
up
and
9-9.
Yeah,
well, whenever the
so going back, they beat East on
Fayetteville East.
Yeah, Fayetteville East to move to 8-7 on January 25th. Since then, this is very important for my pick. Loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. What's their next game?
It's got to be a win.
It's got to be a win.
Are we sure they don't have a regular season game before this one?
Because they're 11-11. So.
Okay. And then we both have
Chesapeake probably is winning that game.
We both have Wheelersburg and River Valley moving on to the district semifinal round, where we both have Minford and Wheelersburg advancing to the district final. And this will be the 3rd meeting, if it happens, this season between these two teams. Minford winning the first one 36-29, or it was kind of an unattractive score because
it was 36-24.
36-24.
It was much worse than you think.
So it was a very low scoring game. You were at that one. I believe you were at. Did you go to the second one too?
No, Brock was there.
Okay. And then in the second meeting, Wheelersburg, I can't remember the score, but it was 59-50.
Yeah.
Wheelersburg won. I think that was last Monday, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we were driving back from Portsmouth after the Portsmouth and Fairland game. But Wheelersburg split the season series with Minford splitting the SOC 3 title. So theoretically, we have the rubber match between these two teams for a district title. I have Wheelersburg winning this one. You have Minford winning this one.
Yeah, I think maybe it goes to the fact that I saw it. I mean, it's
it's kind of how it is. I mean, we were talking about it on the boys' side, how I picked against Sims Valley because I probably saw them at one of their worst points in the season, whereas you kind of saw Wheelersburg at one of their worst offensive performances of the season, and you saw Minford kind of get a gritty win over the Pirates.
Yeah, and Minford has not been the most consistent, but I will say this: at the half, currently they are pounding Fed Hawk 36-22 on a Monday night. So I don't know.
We tried to pick that game twice.
Yeah, was it only twice? It might have been 3 times.
Well, we picked it once, and it got canceled due to sickness, and the second time was due to snow. We were like, They put it on Monday, so we couldn't pick it. So.
Yeah, that was on purpose. But yeah, I can't really figure out this Minford team, but I just like what they were able to do, what they've been able to do in other sports to, move
Tell you
on.
what, Minford Athletics just had
A really
quite
nice,
the calendar year going
yeah,
back to last spring.
yeah. So they've been outstanding. So ultimately, I think they'll win a tight one there. But yeah, I think that's the best district championship game that we're going to see more than likely in Division Five. As one was a 12-point win, the other one was a 9-point game. So ultimately, I'm going to take Minford by 3 in this one at the neutral site, even though they both lost at home.
Okay. I just realized I forgot to say that, like, on the pictures, I'm blue and you're red, but
yes, I'm red.
I might just write it on like the first picture so everybody knows. Just write a little key down. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the Southeast 3. We'll just kind of fly through this one because we didn't have a whole lot of different. I think Chesapeake and West Union and the district final in the Southeast 2 were the only two differences we had in Division 5, but we both have Ironton, North Adams, and Adena getting out of the district quarterfinal round. And then we both have Adena and Fairland moving on to the district final, where we both have Fairland moving on to the regional tournament. One thing you mentioned, and for Fairland and Ironton, that'll be their third meeting of the season. Obviously, Fairland swept the season series with the Fighting Tigers. One matchup you highlighted as being potentially interesting was, I think was it North Adams and Adena? You said could be good,
but I also,
or you said no, it was Fairland and Adena if it gets there.
If it gets there, because I think North Adams isn't a great matchup for Adena. But I think Adena runs so much stuff and handles the ball so well that I think they could be an interesting one against Fairland. Although I think Fairland ultimately wins this, I do think Adena could push them if it gets that. I'm not sure if North Adams could. The only thing for North Adams in that would be they would have a massive size advantage. Berger does a really good job for them.
Yep.
They do a good job of getting
her. Day. Yeah, that'll be
a good matchup. And
that's the 18th, so that's next Monday. Is that what the 18th is? The 10th.
It's Tuesday.
Oh, next Tuesday.
Yeah. So that'll be an interesting one. That probably not the best game. Well, no, because the Minford and South Webster game does not feature teams from either of these leagues. Right. I was going to say the best game in a SOC gym, but it's probably not. But North Adams and Adena. I think North Adams Adena is probably the best game out of the district semis. Maybe Huntington and Alexander, but I do think that ultimately it's going to be Adena, and then I think Adena, at least for a half, maybe 3/4, will hang around with Fairland, but then I think Fairland will be just a bit too much.
All right, we can go ahead and move on to Division 6. Once again, my picks are in blue ink. Yours are in red. Shout out The Office for having a red pen that we could use. We were going to do blue and black, but I wasn't going to let that happen because I thought they looked too similar. We'll start with the Southeast 1. We do have a difference out of the district quarterfinal round, the 8-9 matchup. I have Lynchburg Clay technically pulling off the upset. You have Valley moving on. But after that, we're all the exact same as you have Fedhawk beating either Lynchburg, Clay, or Valley to advance to the district final. You have, or I guess we both have Eastern Brown and West advancing to the district semis. Well, actually, I missed one. We both have those two teams advancing to the district semis, but I have West getting out. You have Eastern Brown getting out. But either way, we have Fedhawk winning a district title in Division 6.
Yeah, I think Fedhawk with Cottrell, I think that gives them a little bit of an edge. They are a little deeper than the teams in the in Division 6 are going to be. So ultimately, I'm going to take Fedhawk, but at the same time, I don't think they were playing their best ball near the end of the year where Eastern Brown seemingly was. But the West, I think West and Eastern Brown could be a really sneaky good game next Monday. And that is a West team that is very young and very inconsistent. So based off of the inconsistency, they scare me.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think I went with Eastern, right?
You took Eastern. I think I took West. I have reasoning behind all these, but there's so many picks I can't remember them. If I remember right, North Adams swept Eastern Brown, and I think West beat North Adams. So I think that was kind of
That's good enough reason. Honestly,
like without watching any of these teams
there's
like
so
super in depth,
so many divisions and
right.
so many teams, and I mean, we added another 14 to our coverage area that we got to at least know something about so far this year. So it's a lot. So sometimes we got to go in with like scores and things like that. So ultimately, I do think FedHawk wins this, but I think that could be an interesting district final. Either way, if it's Eastern or West, I think could really possibly push FedHawk near the end.
All right, we go ahead and move on to the Southeast 2. Just looking over it, we're the exact same until you get to the district final. So we both have Belpre, Colgrove, Whiteoak, and Ripley getting out of the district quarterfinals, with Belpre and Whiteoak advancing to the district final. I have the what are they? They're like the golden. Are they the Golden Eagles?
Yes,
the Golden Eagles,
no gold,
but they're orange. I have the Golden Eagles securing the TVC or the
the district title for the TVC.
The district title for the TVC. FedHawks and the TVC Hawking too, aren't they?
Yes.
So that'd be 2 TVC Hawking district titles.
It will be 3.
Oh, well, yeah, with Waterford as well. Yeah. So the TVC Hawking, at least for me, representing well here at the district level. You have Whiteoak picking up the district final here.
And, with picking them
after seeing them lose,
after seeing them lose,
how it works,
and without their guard being out.
Yeah.
If she's out, that's probably a bad pick. But I think they're well coached. I like what the Hawking twins can do. I really liked what Addie Roberts could do. So I think probably because of seeing them and how they competed without one of their best players when they're being a little undersized is why I took them there. But Belpre has had a heck of a year as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Belpre wins that.
We'll go ahead and move on to Division 7. I'm just now realizing that, we really don't have too many differences.
No, that's why I said,
I think boys will definitely have a few more differences.
I said the boys are going to be more interesting. There's just...
Listen, this is what I'll say, and I'll say it. I just feel like in girls basketball, you don't see as many upsets as you do. It just seems like maybe the better team in terms of skill wins more often than not in girls basketball. And that's maybe not the case in boys basketball. I mean, we've seen Adina this year beat Westfall twice. And I think if you ask anybody, you would say skill-wise, Westfall probably the better team, but Adina's had their number this year.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you don't see it, like you said, you don't see it a lot in girls. That's why I'll go to, even though Adina hung with Unioto in girls, Unioto's won 42 straight league games, and I think they've only had one less than 10 points, and it was that one. So,
but at the same time, we have Adina, who's an 8 seed, advancing to a district final, right, where they would have to upset a number 5 North Adams team.
Yeah,
so
but I think
it still happens, just maybe not quite as often.
And I think outside of the top 2 and definitely the top 1 in Division 5, I think the teams are fairly even.
I think the Southeast 2 is open for maybe a couple teams.
Because I think River Valley could
maybe a few teams to make a run to the final. Obviously, Wheelersburg and Minford are favorites. River Valley, a good option as a 9 seed. And, you never know. Chesapeake coming out of a tough Ohio Valley Conference. I mean, you never know. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move on to Division 7, where I believe we have one difference on the entire board out of the 14 teams. So,
we have one?
Yeah, we do. We do have one. We'll start with the Southeast.
Oh, I know what it is.
We'll start with the Southeast one, which for whatever reason is on the bottom of the paper. I don't know. We have Sims Valley, South Gallia, and Southern getting out of the district quarterfinal round, and we both have Green and South Gallia getting out of the district semis. So we have Green taking down Sims Valley and South Gallia taking down Southern. And then we both have Green taking down South Gallia. These two teams played first game of the season, and I think for Green, it's a good thing actually I already have this pulled up. I think Green got them by 5 or 6, if I remember right, because I was looking at it. Yeah, they beat them by 5. So we both picked Green. I will say I picked Green pretty much without hesitation, but I think this could be a pretty interesting game.
Yeah, South Gallia, last year when we saw them, they were missing
Imagine if this. I wish those guards for South Gallia were juniors,
Right.
because this matchup would be
So,
crazy.
but they had a player that was out who had some good size, and she was a junior, so she's back. I think it's Clary. For South Gallia, so would be a senior this year, but missed last year when we saw them.
And Booth back as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they're, I think from what we saw, coaching wise, seemed like they're pretty well coached. So that would be why we would both take them to make that extended run. But it wouldn't it would still surprise me. But with that first game being close, although it being at South Gallia, maybe that may have made a difference in there. But yeah, I think that one's got a chance to be a fun one down the stretch.
And then in the Southeast, too, we have one district in the district semis. I guess it's technically in the district quarterfinals. We both have Notre Dame and Trimble getting out of the district quarterfinal round. New Boston and Clay are going to square off for the third time this season. New Boston has won the previous two. Man, I just realized I don't know New Boston's mascot. The Wildcats? The Tigers. The New Boston. Oh, yeah, now I can see their logo. I have the Tigers taking down the Panthers to complete the 3-game series sweep. You have Clay picking up a win.
I do have Clay. They're at home. Give me the Panthers.
They are at home.
Give me the Panthers in the cat fight.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Panthers and Tigers.
Yeah, and the jungle, I think. Are Tigers in the jungle? I know they're in the Jungle Book.
I think Tigers.
I think the Tigers are jungle.
Yeah, Lions are in the open field.
Yeah,
I think
they're
Tigers are in the jungle. Yeah, I think that's.
There's not Sahara, Savannah.
Either way, we have Waterford and Notre Dame advancing to the district final. I think this was this a district final last year, or was Notre Dame on the other side? I think Notre Dame would have been the 2, so they probably would have been on the other side. But either way, we've got Waterford taking down Notre Dame for a district final.
I can tell you why Waterford's in the Southeast too.
Because they're going to the...
They would play the Central. The Southeast one plays the East, which is Berlin Highland, which you would rather face them in the regional final, or you throw Green at them and see if Green can knock them off too, because those two, Waterford and Berlin Highland, played in the regional final last year and went to overtime. So wouldn't be surprised if that happened once again this year.
So out of the 8 district champions, we picked 6 of the same.
Yeah.
Division 6, I picked Belpre, you picked Whiteoak, and Division 5, I picked Wheelersburg, you picked Minford. Maybe I think that's fair. I think we'll do 1 point for each game, and then 2 points if you get the district champion right. I mean, that's
whatever. But okay, I'm going to throw something at you. You usually throw stuff at me, and without going over it.
I'm ready.
How many of our teams make it to the Final Four? You can look through it if you want.
I'll just tell you by team. Well, Portsmouth, so 1.
Do you think they win the state?
I just don't know.
State final would be against Ottawa Glandorf, more than likely.
I love that mascot.
The Titans. And the Titans beat the Trojans last year in the state semis. So it would be
by how much?
It was like 8 or 9, but it was fouls. And but that would be the ultimate revenge game if you get them in the finals. So
it's just hard when you get to that point. I mean, it would be hard for me to just tell me if you think they make it to a regional final, which obviously I think they do.
Right.
Well, Portsmouth makes it to the Final Four. I think they make it to the state title game. I don't have a good, just for fun. Right. Yeah, they're going to win a state title, whatever. I mean, I really don't have a good enough grasp of the entire Division 5 the Division 5 for girls basketball to really make that kind of pick, just because my knowledge is pretty limited to the Southeast District. So after that would be more of a me ask you question, which I think is kind of what you were getting at. But let me just keep looking. So I'm not sure Fairland can get there. I don't think Wheelersburg or Minford will. Portsmouth for sure. Waterford for sure. I don't really think either of the D6 teams get there. I'm not sure if Green is deep enough to get there, but once again, I'm not familiar enough with the Division 7 girls basketball tournament to really know. But just based on you telling me they would have to get through Berlin Highland and the regionals, I'm assuming, I'm not sure. I know Berlin Highland is pretty tough.
Yeah.
So maybe 1 out of 8. I mean, I think Fairfield Union could make it. I mean, they seem like they've got a pretty good team. I mean, they haven't lost this year. So I'll go 2. But I'm not specifying which 2, so I'm just saying 2.
Okay, so I'm going to say Portsmouth is for sure. I'm going to say Waterford.
Wait, no, my fault. I meant 3.
Okay, I was going to say, and I think Waterford will. But that Berlin Highland would be really tough. I think
For green.
Huh?
For green.
No, I think for either.
I'm saying, but you just said make it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Well, would they have Waterford wouldn't have to play Berlin Highland to get to the Final Four, would they? Oh, I thought Green would.
No, Green would in the Sweet 16.
Oh, so in the regional semi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say those 2 for sure. I think I'm gonna say 2.5.
So the line is 2.5 over under. I'll go over.
I'll take over. Also,
I think Fairfield Union could get there.
I looked at there. So the East is usually pretty strong in 4, but I don't know. Well, I would say in 4, in like 2, and then it drops down to 4. But I mean, really, I don't know. Like the 1 went away from Fairfield Union, so the 1 is going at the Central instead of the Southeast, which you don't normally see. So that to me means this is going to be a weird way to say it, means they're probably weaker. Like it's probably a little weaker on the Division 4 side in the East. So I think Fairfield Union has a chance. I think Fairland gets at least to the regional final.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of a toss-up, and I think they're going to have the coaching advantage. They're going to have the experience advantage. So I think either Fairfield Union or Fairland can get there. I don't know if they will. And obviously, with like, we'll say Minford, Wheelersburg, they got to go through Portsmouth.
Yeah.
I think ultimately one of those.
Well, and that's the thing. Some of these teams cancel each other out. Right. Where it's like, we're talking about D7 or D7. Like Green and Waterford can't make it, right? Because they play each other, or they would play each other in the Elite 8. So, yeah, I'll be optimistic. I'll be optimistic and say 3 because I think the max is like 4 because. It's
now if you threw out like a Unioto or Athens,
you're right. That's a little different. Or I guess Marietta's not really in our coverage area, but
I think you can throw like a Southeast team in there. But I look at, okay, you got to win the Southeast, then you got to win the East, and then you got to play a team from the Northeast, and then you got to play either a Central or a Northeast. And I just think it's going to be too much for somebody in Division 3. So I'll take the over on that.
Yeah, I'll go 3 teams make the Final Four. 1 team makes the state final. I'm not specifying who does it. I'm just saying that's what's going to happen.
I think the winner of Waterford, Berlin Highland makes the final. So I would say 2. I would say 2 make the final.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the over, and then I'm going to take
over 2.5 Final Four teams.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the over on 1.5, make the final. And then if we go a half, win the state, I'm going to take Portsmouth too.
Okay.
I know it's probably not that wild for us each to take the number 1 team in the state, but still, like, you know what? It's we've seen them, we've been impressed by them, and yes.
And once again, I mean, this already because I've done it before me saying this, but I'm going to put all the pictures of the brackets on the screen, and I'm blue and John is red, and I'll just write that on like the Division 4 bracket just so you know for the rest of the time, because I guess everybody watching doesn't recognize my handwriting from yours, but
I think it's starting to look better this year.
Was it bad last year?
No,
we wrote it with like markers last year.
Yeah, that probably didn't help. But like I've always had like super manly handwriting. I don't think my handwriting was as good. And by super manly, I'm being very sarcastic. Because I'll be like, oh man, like people will be like, oh man, you got good handwriting. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like I literally went to a school that taught handwriting.
You're suffering from success.
I was graded on handwriting through 3rd grade. So.
All right. After we just did all that, we're going to go ahead and move on to quick picks. I just realized I didn't change that. So let me just. So doing quick picks is going to get kind of weird because it's mostly going to be tournament games, which is just kind of going to be copy and paste. Like, is this our last week of this, or are we going to keep doing it for the tournament? Because
I think we can do it for the tournament, but we might not do 5 games. I think we just got to look at.
maybe
We'll see. We'll see next week.
you get what I'm saying, because like our quick picks are just going to be copied from our.
Right.
Or you could change it if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. But
I'm a coward. Like I said, you clipped that thing of me talking. I had no idea I even said it. So like we're on here for 2 hours a week, and outside of the fact that you edit it, I try to ignore anything I say at any point in time in my life. So like people will be like, "Oh, I heard you say this." I'm like, "Great. I hope it wasn't bad."
But I try to get as many regular season games into this week's quick picks as I could. I got 3. Those were the only ones I could find. We've got about 30 seconds. So it's Unioto at Circleville, Waterford at Marietta, Westfall at Piketon, Waverly at Logan Elm, and Zane Trace at Huntington. Those last 2 are the tournament games. Westfall at Piketon, or is it Piketon at Westfall?
Piketon at Westfall is the regular season game.
That's the one we're picking.
Yeah.
Okay. We got 3 seconds.
Yep.
And game 1, Unioto at Circleville. We picked this game last week, but it got postponed to this week. I really like both of these teams. I've got Circleville going to the district final in Division 4. Unioto, they got to get through Marietta to do the same in Division 3. These are 2 really well-coached teams. They're obviously 2 of the top teams, regardless of division. Here in the Southeast District, especially in Ross and Pickaway counties, maybe the top 2 teams in Ross and Pickaway counties. But I think I like Unioto more in this one.
Yeah, you've got the District 3 Players of the Year in Hamilton and Smith for Unioto, Division 4 Player of the Year in Edgington for Circleville. I do think Edgington gives a different look for Circleville than what Unioto is comfortable with. That is something Unioto struggled with. And I think Charlotte Dennis is out for at least this week for Unioto, so that could be an issue for them inside. But I think Hamilton and especially Smith are going to be too much. I'm going to take Unioto on the road in a tight one.
All right, and then game 2, we've got Waterford at Marietta. This is obviously, one of the bigger matchups in the Southeast District this week. It's a top team in Division 3 versus a top team in Division 7. I mean, this Waterford team has absolutely challenged themselves this season. I'm sure they've done that over the past few years, but just me personally, I've really noticed it this season. For the Wildcats, I think they're both district favorites, but in this one, I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with Marietta.
Yeah, I think Wagner is going to be a really, Wagner and Surrey for Waterford are going to be a really tough matchup for Marietta, but I think Marietta's depth. I think they had 4 in double figures, and their 5th had 8 against Fairland the other day. So I'm also going to take the home team, but I do think this one, shout out to Coach Close in Waterford for going out and just absolutely challenging themselves in the non-league with games like this, especially right before the tournament.
And then our third game, this is where we're getting into the district game, so it's just kind of copy and paste from our bracket breakdowns. This is a Division 4 district quarterfinal, Waverly at Logan Elm. It's a really defensive Waverly team against a Logan Elm team offensively led by Kiana Ingram. I think I'm going to go with the home team. I think Ingram and the Braves advance to the district semis.
This Waverly team is one of the weirder teams in our coverage area. They lost to Southeastern. I think it might have been Southeastern's last win. It's just they're a team that has been very unpredictable throughout the season, which is why they are 11-11. And this Logan Elm team, Kiana Ingram, one of the better shooters in the area, averages over 20 points a game. I think with Kimmy Petty, they also have a secondary scorer that can fill it up. I think if we did this before the picks, I may have went the other way, but ultimately I'm going to go with Logan Elm as well in this one. I do think it's tough to win at Logan Elm.
And then game 4, Piketon at Westfall. This is the regular season
finale.
Not remake.
Rematch.
Not rematch. Makeup game. This is the makeup game from, I think, last Friday or Saturday. Piketon at Westfall, round 2. This is the first of 2 games they're going to play this week. That'll be Westfall at Piketon for a district quarterfinal later on in the week. I'm going to go with Piketon to complete the regular season series sweep.
I'm down a game. I'm going to have fun with this. I picked Piketon to win in the tournament, and that's the more important of the 2 games. But ultimately, I'm going to take Adrian Mole, Mackenzie Cook, to win a tight one on Fearson Pike in Williamsport. Gosh, I just blanked. I was trying to make a big point. But yeah, I think Westfall, just purely for me picking Piketon the rest of the way, I'm going to take Westfall to win at home. It's really tough to win at the Dome.
That's another game we picked last week, and you flipped your pick.
Yeah.
Last time you flipped your
pick,
I
didn't know I was down a point.
Yeah.
And if this is the last week we're doing the girls, like I got to make up a point sometime.
Right.
That's probably a terrible pick.
All right, Game 5. Zane Trace at Huntington, same thing. This is another tournament game. This will be the third meeting between these two teams. Huntington has won both by less than 10 points. This one is at Huntington. They have 1,000-point score in Allie Baker. Zane Trace is playing a lot better this season than years past, but ultimately I'm going to go with the Huntsmen to move on to the district semis in this one.
Emma Houston creates a big matchup issue for Huntington in this one. Zane Trace is junior, able to step out, knock down some shots, also really good length. She scores around the rim very well as well, which is why they've been up going into the fourth quarter or in the fourth quarter of both of the previous meetings. But just like the previous two meetings, I'm going to take Allie Baker, Leah McCloskey, Braley Hosworth, and the Huntsman to move on and advance.
There we go. Another round of quick picks in the books. Out of 10 games, we had 2 differences. But I mean, it's
I'm gonna lose by a point because I picked that.
But you can't lose by. We only have. Oh, you mean like maybe I'll get the. What was the other one we picked differently? It was Western and Sims Valley, I believe. So, I was up.
Yeah, that'll tie it, and instead of staying tied,
I was up 4 going into last week, and then only 8 games were played out of the 10 we picked, and I went 3-5, and you went 5-3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how we'll do it come tournament time. I will say right now, Ironton is leading Chesapeake by 14 in the second half, so it's looking like that Fairland Chesapeake rematch is not going to be for the OVC title game, as Ironton seems to be handling business at home against Chesapeake. By
the way, Fed Hawk now winning with 5:20 left.
There we go.
They were down 16 at one point and are now winning. So also apparently that Circleville and Hillsborough boys game is tonight. So we have picked it before, and they're in the third quarter, and Hillsborough's up by 3. So once again,
that game was on Monday.
Before. It was supposed to be on Wednesday.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but we picked it before.
We did.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, it's probably even better if Hillsborough wins, because then it's like, we both picked against them, so whatever. But yeah, this will be a fun week. Get the tournament started. We'll see how Division 7 divisions go. Like whatever. Like I don't know. Like I know we're gonna get down to the combo. We're gonna need to call a bunch of games. It'll be
8 guaranteed, maybe 9.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Like it'll be fun to go do those games. But man, it's like
a lot of games.
Why do we have so many divisions? Like, why do we have so many divisions if not every regular season game matters? If every regular season game doesn't matter, like who cares? Like you said, was it South Point that had gone in like 10-7 or something, and now they're like 10-11?
Yeah. Where's my Division 4 sheet? Yeah, so South Point is 10, and so this is just how it looks. So South Point was the 6, Vinton County was the 11. South Point on here is 10-8. They finished, I think, 13-9, and then Vinton County was 11-7, and they finished like 11-13 or something.
Yeah, so it's just.
Or I guess that doesn't make sense. 11-11 or something like that.
So it's just why when you can do it in football? Why is football where you have to look at so many things,
especially with so many games postponed, like this Ironton Chesapeake game?
Yeah, what's the score?
44 to. I don't know. They have enough. 44-33 halfway through the third quarter.
Who's winning?
Ironton. And I mean, those are teams that are back-to-back, in which, in that case, the back-to-back matters because, or does it matter? Yeah, because that would put you in a different district, because instead of being 4 playing Minford, you'd be in the 3 playing Fairland. Right. So, I mean, it changes things up quite a bit.
It's just, it doesn't, it's so dumb. I don't know why.
Why isn't Selection Sunday this coming Sunday?
Right. It would make sense. Like,
I'd say it has a lot to do with
but now they're
like
not,
scheduling buses and making sure the travel plan. Because I'm not sure
well,
how.
just don't start the games until Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, just say,
I don't
hey,
know.
you're going to play on Thursday. You might need a bus.
I just don't know how long it takes to, get everything scheduled and make sure all your travel plans.
But they're able to do it for football. That's my
issue.
But
that's a week in advance.
Yeah, but you could do the tournament a week in advance. You can move everything up and just say, hey, you're not playing any regular season games after this date.
But then maybe you have to move basketball back.
You don't have to move basketball back.
Or move baseball back.
They don't care about baseball. Like, they have proven for years that they don't care about baseball. And I'm sure they don't care about softball either. They just want to get it over with. They put it the furthest north that they can. And they're like, oh, this is easy to go here. So, yeah, whenever we know we're done with overtime presented by Perfection One, I'm just going to go ballistic just to end one of these, because I don't like, I still might get back into coaching, so I don't want to really do it, but I kind of do because it drives me nuts. It's just like, I don't know. I think it was like Wheelersburg and Minford in soccer play like the last game of the regular season, like, but it doesn't matter for the tournament when
does soccer end early too?
Yep. And it's just like, you don't need it to end early. Like, you just start the tournament a little later, and all you need is like 3 days ahead of time. Or you say, okay, your last games are on Friday. You are not playing on Saturday. We will get you the brackets on Saturday. Then you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to do your travel plans, and you start playing Thursday.
Ironton very clearly has a like very solid secondary gym because they don't have volleyball lines on that gym, so they play volleyball somewhere else.
Probably at the school, because I think that's the.
Do they have a separate arena for their gymnasium? I've never been there.
That looks way too bright to be the one I've been at. Maybe it's not the Carter Center.
It is.
It is the Carter.
It has all the banners in it. It has like the little middle part thing.
I have no idea then.
Yeah, I mean they don't have any volleyball lines, so that's now one of two schools I know that don't play basketball and volleyball in the same gym.
And what do they share the same school colors? But yeah, that's the same gym I've been in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've never been there. It looks pretty sweet.
It's very
cool. Far away. So does it have two sides on both sides? Or two levels on both sides,
yes,
or is it just
I think it does. I've only sat on the one side at the bottom, so I don't know if it's.
You were down there last year when like South Webster was playing. Buddy,
yeah.
I don't know. They won.
Might have been that expression prep or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you stuck around to this point, thanks.
Oh yeah, we're doing a bunch of games this week.
Yeah. If you didn't see them on the ticker, they've been going by. We already mentioned Miami Trace, and this is all weather permitting. Minford at Miami Trace boys Tuesday, Fairland at Chesapeake boys on Wednesday, Ross County Christian Academy hosting the Westfall Mustangs on Thursday, and then Chillicothe at Jackson boys on Friday. So I don't know what day the coaches call-in show is going to be on this week.
I think Thursday.
It's whatever.
I'll tell you what, I really don't want to produce it anymore, because I don't know how to get my phone to work for phone calls. So that was, I felt very unprepared for that. But shout out our Jacob Weiss for getting me set up that night. Because
you have to help you again?
Yeah, but you didn't screw up any of the things.
Nice.
So I didn't really have to plug anything in. It was just kind of like I turned it on. And I was like, oh, I know how this works. And then my phone didn't work. So,
but for the bracket stuff, we're going to do the same thing. But for the boys next week, I will say next week is going to be a very boys-centered episode, kind of like how this one was a little more girls-centered, just because it's hard to preview district tournament play when the district semis haven't been played yet. So, that'll wrap it up unless you have anything extra you want to add in. This was just it was about 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Stay safe.
So
don't drive too quickly on the snow.
Yeah.
And if someone tells you that it's icy somewhere, probably not. No, but just be careful when you're driving to these places. We will have the live streams for a lot of these, if not. So yeah, hopefully weather permitting wise. But yeah, so just check into our socials and whatnot, and you'll see. And then if you want to check my social, I will rant about something dumb. It could be about YouTube videos trying to, like today. They tried to run like a 45-minute Tony Hawk interview in the middle of like an 8-minute video I was watching. I'm like, that, like, why?
Yeah,
It's just a bunch of silly geese. But let's have a fun week. It should be fun last week of the regular season for boys, even though it's not completely over until next week.
All right. With that being said, episode 63 here on the overtime in the books. Episode 64 coming out next week. I think we've got probably our last episode will be March 4th for the boys. Because that'll be the Tuesday after that Sunday, and I know the Sunday is March 2nd with all those district finals at the Convo. So however many Tuesdays away March 4th is, that'll probably be our last episode for the winter. So I'm guessing that's 3 more episodes, because a week from today is, that actually adds up, because when this comes out, it'll be the 11th, then the 18th, then the 25th, and then the 4th. So we've got 3 more after this for the winter. But for this one, that'll wrap it up for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection.